710 KNUS. We are Denver's talk station. Made it to a Friday. Holidays are beginning to be about halfway over. It's December 27th, 2024. Good old 710 KNUS. We are Denver's talk station. This morning, I read most of this yesterday about people, how we view the news and what that all now means. And there's a new demo, and I know that Blake's on the other end of this. News avoiders. I've never heard that term before. News avoiders and how they see, quote, journalism and people about news avoidance. And then there's been some interesting studies that have dropped over the weekend about how people feel the need to limit media consumption about politics due to called info overload and fatigue. And it's interesting, the lead demo, you should not be shocked, are the Democrats at 72%, Republicans at 59%, 63% of independents, 65% overall Americans exhausted by political news. So for a while this morning, I'd really like to know your news consumption habits. In the meantime and in between time, here he is, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. He is the newsman of the year. Ladies and gentlemen, Blake Olson. Good morning, sir.
I'm not the newsman of the year, but I know who you are. You are the man, and It's great being with you. And Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
Hopefully you had a good time with the family.
Yeah, I did. And yourself?
Did you?
Yeah, I was went to the ski down in Winter Park. And
did you?
Yeah.
You weren't on the gondola that got stuck, right?
No, but it's the talk of the town.
I can imagine.
What happened to, I think it was like 157 people or something.
Yeah.
And they rescued everybody, and they gave them 2 lift tickets and I think a $10 gift certificate or a $20 gift certificate.
Well, that's good.
There were people up in the air for 4 hours, 4 and 5 hours.
Yeah, man. See, I wouldn't like to have been in that situation. I mean, it's just, you're a skier. I like to ski, but when it gets into situations like that, I can go for other things.
But I had a good talk with one of the techs, and what the gondola did is what it is or was designed to do. It sensed a crack, and it stopped.
Well, that's good.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, thank God.
And that gondola,
well designed.
Yeah, precisely. And again, how the media has handled it. Back to talking about the media.
Yeah.
But the machine itself is designed to stop when it detects a crack. And they have things that are called drive wheels that push. I mean, there's only, I think, 3 companies in the world that make lifts, maybe 2. And it's a skill. It's an art.
Well, it must have been beautiful for you to
what a great
ski
day.
up there. Was it beautiful?
Well, I mean, I didn't.
You were skiing?
No, I went to but by the time we got everything done, and my grandson and my son and I got there, we went to what was called the ski down, and they've done it every year since back when Jerry Greswell started it. And at the top of the hill, everything's pitch black, and the ski patrol and senior skiers and ski instructors, and they begin to ski. They have a flare in each hand, like a railroad flare, and they begin these serpentine, and then followed by
that's cool.
It's really cool, Santa Claus, and then followed by the groomers. The groomers light their they light everything up differently, and they play music, and there's big bonfires,
cool.
and it's a great tradition. I mean, it's a great way to see the holidays come in. So it was cool. Yeah. So tell me about the media.
Oh, well, I'm one of those people. I think we've talked about this a couple of times before, but I'm one of those people. I haven't watched local news on television or really read the newspaper locally, or say the New York Times. At times, the Wall Street Journal I will read, but I haven't read those and followed those and paid attention to them for 20 years because because of social media. That's just me. I mean, you could get your news in so many ways, and I also get it from the radio, and people that I trust, like you, and numerous people nationwide. So yeah, I'm definitely one of those people who avoid the traditional means. Network news, never watch it, never.
You know what? I follow right in behind you. I don't. And it dawned on me when I was reading this yesterday afternoon, I don't. And this term news avoider.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a new term to me.
Yeah, me too. I've never heard of that. But I mean, you remember when we grew up, you get home from work or school and the family gathers at the dinner table and you're watching 30 minutes of the network news.
Sure.
And that was the 70s and 80s for the most part. But I always made sure I watched Connie Chung. That wasn't for the news, but I used to watch it.
I'm reading I'm reading her book now.
Is that right?
Yeah, it's called Connie.
Really?
Yeah, it's a part-time read for me right now.
How is it?
It's very good.
Yeah. Interesting.
I mean, she talks about what you can imagine a young Asian woman coming into this business. Woo. I mean, she had some moments, but
wait, who is she married to?
Maury Povich.
Maury Povich.
Yeah.
That's right.
And I mean, her folks came from the old country, and her dad was a stalwart, traditional Chinese Confucian, and her mom, and she changed her name to a working name, but that doesn't surprise anybody.
Yeah.
But it's just how she was treated, and I'm as far as she's caught her first network gig, so it'll be a while before I get through it all. But actually, cool. She's like I met her once, and she was here, and I think it was the Ramsey story, and we did a real quick, in and out. But she was lovely. She was very nice, had great manners, and wasn't one of those abrupt media people that you and I both know and love. So
yeah, she was amazing on air.
Yeah, she really did a good job, and then she marries this right guy. Come back. I wrote these questions down last night for work questions, and I don't think they apply to the audience much more than you, because you are in the business. But these are abstract. But how has the media changed you, and how have you changed because of the media? And then what is your media life? I termed I'm sure I'm not original here, but a phrase, media life. And mine is far more withdrawn now than it was, say, 2 years ago. But so how do you start your day? Because you got to put a newscast together.
Yeah.
So what do you do?
Well, I mean, the news that you hear us do, we have a news service, and I can tell that at least 2 or 3 of the stories in there are not even really stories. It's like throwaway material, and a lot of it, honestly, is old. So 2 or 3 days old. So, I try to start with that and look at the national news and go to the local news. And, unfortunately, the local news is a lot of depressing things and crime and, things you don't want to talk about that like today, for example, that involve children, and it's depressing, and it's stories that how will they affect you? So I've been able to decipher what I think is real and what isn't, and what is
you present a newscast, and I'm a big fan of yours. So
I'm a big fan of yours.
Yeah, but your newscast is
thank you.
It's very jaded, because you see the world, with the vulture's eye. And and I mean,
definitely,
as a compliment.
I agree with you.
And so when I hear the Blake cast in the morning with the guys, and I can, I can almost how you tail out of it, and that's with praise. But
no, I appreciate
no,
that.
but when you watch, for instance, the only non-radio guy that gets any attention in this city, guess who? What television anchor? No, seriously.
The Upside Down Channel 6. How about that?
Yeah, well, that's a good way to say it. And what particular part of the Upside Down Channel 6 is it that drive?
Sport Co.
It drives talk radio.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, he gets banged on over on KOA. Andrea bangs on him.
Is that right?
Oh yeah. And Danny Kaplis sort of left-handedly does. You guys, you do all the, and you do, and Billy does, and Jeff does. So, but isn't it interesting that he's the one guy?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true.
That gets
and why? Yeah, he's doing his job as far.
Yeah.
If you look at it that way. And we are talking about Kyle Clark. I've never watched him, honestly. I never have. I don't watch local news, so it's probably unfair for me to.
Do you think that when a listener hears you say, or the news anchor on the morning show, I don't watch local news, do you think that's a good thing or a bad thing?
Oh, I think it's a good thing because I believe that. Now it's difficult because I'm 58 years old and a lot of people my age don't exactly think the way I do,
mm-hmm.
but
you might be surprised.
And gather. Yeah,
you might be surprised.
True. But I think a lot of younger people in their 30s and 40s kind of appreciate what I'm saying because they're not watching local TV news either.
No, that's been so diminished.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm kind of weird like that. And no, I mean, I'm gonna get my news. I'm gonna get the information somewhere. I'm not gonna get it from mommy news like what you, which I think is perfect. You dubbed it mommy news, and that's exactly what it is. And Bronco news, and that's That's
but even there's in-house Bronco news. In other words, the late Jim Turner would talk to me about how it is to play for the Jets in New York.
Mm-hmm.
He said, he said these players have
they have no idea.
No idea.
Yeah.
And they have no idea what fans are like.
Right.
Dave Logan said that about going to Oakland to play and the black hole.
Yeah.
And I know that I have a story to tell, but it would have to bring somebody in that's prominent, but who they we were given when the Broncos were trying to build the new stadium.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my dearest friends is John Beek. We ski together and skied in the past. And they were bringing guys on Bronco road trips. It was a real smart, it was a very smart move by Pat Bolin and company. So John and I I love John Beek, and John said, hey, do you want to go to one of the Steeler games? Go on the road and go to a Steeler game. And I said, well, yeah, I haven't done anything like that in a long, long time. And I said, can you this is the typical Irish thing. I said, can you get my brother and my nephew a ticket? and Beek said, yeah. So we had 3 tickets.
Because you're from Pitt. You're from Pittsburgh.
I grew up there.
Yeah.
So I called my brother to tell him, and hey, man, we got tickets. And he said, do me a favor. And I said, tell me. And he said, don't wear any of that Bronco S. He said, we're going into Three Rivers, pal. And I grew up there. I knew better.
Yeah.
But there was a very, very prominent Denverite. I'll leave it go that far. And so we took a bus from the hotel over to the football stadium, and my nephew was under tailgating, and I met a bunch of my brother's buddies, and most of the guys I grew up with I knew from growing up. And anyhow, so this one particular gentleman had this really great leather jacket, and it was black leather and red inlaid and yellow inlaid Broncos. And we go in, and there's guys in there wearing their Carhartts. They're wearing their work clothes to the game.
Right.
And I know these guys. I grew up
absolutely, with the Steelers logo on their work shirt.
On their hard hats.
Their hard hats, exactly.
And they're good to go.
And they're actual hard hats.
Oh, they're real hard hats. Oh,
yeah.
Not some little yellow stamped thing. These are
exactly.
These are real. We call them hunky hats. That's what they are. And so anyhow, John Elway was the quarterback and made a great play. The Broncos, in fact, lost that game, but the one guy who stands up and cheers is the guy in the Bronco jacket. And I'm sitting about 10 rows back. And, the tickets were spread out. I think my brother and I sat next to each other. My nephew sat in front of us. But it's really interesting to see all of a sudden about 3 or 4 grown men walk down and say, look, that's enough. And so when halftime came, he had the jacket reversed inside out. True story. Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow. See, in Pittsburgh, Pittsburgh's tough like that, but it's not Philly. That's a whole different thing at a football game. Now Steelers fans are great, and I could definitely see that happening. But Philly is the worst place I've ever been for a football game.
Dave Logan told me about them. They booed Santa Claus.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
no, that's what they did. That old stadium at Philly, and I used to cover the Cowboys, and you go in there and look, man, you just act like you're right down the middle, even though you're covering and working for the Cowboys. Don't let them know that, even though they know.
There's a jail in there. There's a jail.
There's a jail. Yeah, they used to have a jail, and now they have I think they have a new jail in the new stadium. So,
but they had a judge, and the stories that I heard or read were the cops would put on like Cowboys jackets.
Oh yeah, absolutely,
and walk around.
Yeah, absolutely. I have to tell you, when I used to travel with the Cowboys and the Broncos, I loved going to Pittsburgh because, man, we would go to one of those Italian restaurants in Pittsburgh on Saturday night before the game. And I always found Steelers fans amazing, with the towels and everything. But I enjoyed going to Pittsburgh. I didn't enjoy going to Philly, though, even though it was an adventure.
Dave said it was Oakland and
I
think he said Oakland and Philadelphia.
Yeah.
And they would throw batteries.
Yes.
Dave told me that story.
Inside a snowball.
Yes.
Yep.
And
no question.
They'd huck these hard balls in at you, and him and Larry are ducking. Kenny Dane is in there with him. Oh man, they told stories about it, and they said, I know that the game that I went to that happened, the Broncos lost. And it was still these people waiting outside. And I thought to myself, geez, what would this been like had the Broncos won?
Right. Oh yeah, great point.
Yeah.
It would have been worse.
It would have been worse.
Yeah, that's great, man.
That was good stuff. So anyhow, what has anything at all changed for you, media consumption, in the last 3 to 5 years?
Yes. I really get everything from my smartphone, honestly, or my dumb phone, the dumb phone.
Yeah.
But really, I do. I can't, unfortunately, I can't tell you the last time I literally picked up a paper and turned through the pages.
Yeah. Westward, I read Westward. I'll pick it up at a breakfast place. And of course I work for the Chronicle, so I do that.
Yeah. They probably have a digital version, though, don't they? I bet they do.
Yeah, they take my column and they put it up on another website, but I wait for whether they call them the Dead Tree Edition. But it's over. I mean, it is. The papers, they're gone. And you know what? I like what you said about the Wall Street Journal. Occasionally, I'll read the Wall Street. There's a Wall Street Journal has a story that they just did on Sturgis about the motorcycle rally.
That right?
Yeah, and it's not positive, but and I read it. Yeah, it's okay.
There's. I mean, it's funny. I was in New York with my wife's family. All of us were there over Thanksgiving, and I see the huge buildings and the distribution sites in Queens of the New York Times, and just the facilities and the land that they take up.
Oh yeah,
and I'm just like, wow, that is over.
Yes,
and also, New York Times hasn't been who we thought they were, 30 years ago.
The gray lady.
20 years ago. Yeah, that's right.
The gray lady.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, interesting.
All kinds of stuff. But so folks will tell us this morning, so it is your turn. 303-696-1971. The Olson Report continues.
All right.
Blake, it's all yours.
All right, I'll blow through this and then you can get back to going here on this Friday, 32 and clear in Denver, expecting a high of 47 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story, DIA with multiple delays and cancellations amid holiday travel. According to FlightAware, over 500 flights were delayed at DIA on Thursday. Over 30 were canceled. Southwest and United had more than 150 delays each. A pedestrian is dead after being hit by a train in Denver. Authorities say the pedestrian was hit near West Ellsworth Avenue and Rio Grande Boulevard around 2:10 Thursday afternoon. The unidentified person was taken to the hospital and was pronounced dead. The death is still under investigation. More details are being released about the arrest of a mother and a father who allegedly abandoned their 1-month-old baby on an Adams County roadway. Investigators say Jarvis Sims and Christina Thurman were seen arguing in the 700 block of Pecos on Christmas morning. The man placed the baby's car seat in the median of the roadway and walked away, leaving the child alone for several minutes. Doctors would later say that the baby's urine tested positive for cocaine. Sims and Jarvis have been charged with felony child abuse and will not be allowed to have any contact with the infant. A pursuit in northwest Colorado on Thursday has led to the arrest of a suspect and left 3 deputies injured. Investigators say the pursuit began in Craig when officers were called to investigate a possible fuel theft at a Maverick gas station. The suspect drove away and was pursued by Moffat County deputies. The suspect crashed into several patrol vehicles, trying to avoid capture until he was finally stopped on Highway 13. Guiomar Gomez Hernandez was arrested and now faces multiple charges. A Bengal tiger and 19 other big cats have died after contracting bird flu at a Washington state sanctuary. The others included cougars, bobcats, and a lynx. Those deaths come as avian flu has spread rapidly in poultry flocks and dairy herds across the country. The man accused of killing a woman by setting her on fire in a New York City subway is due back in court today. Community members in Brooklyn held a candlelight vigil last night for the woman who has yet to be identified. The victim was sitting on an F train when the suspect allegedly approached her and used a lighter to ignite her clothes. News brought to you by Lair Fireplace and Patio, Denver's premier source for everything fireplace, patio, and grills, locally owned and operated since 1954, online at lairfireplacepatio.com. Broncos at the Bengals tomorrow. They need a win to earn a playoff spot. CU takes on BYU in the Alamo Bowl tomorrow in San Antonio. CSU faces Miami of Ohio in the Arizona Bowl tomorrow. And bowls continue today on this Friday. 25 in Castle Rock, 26 in Broomfield, 32 in Denver. It's actually 30 in Broomfield and 29 in Castle Rock. Pete continues in for Jeff and Billy. It's Friday. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
KNUS forecast for the Denver metro area this Friday calls for cool and pleasant late December weather conditions. Temperatures continue to be above average. We'll be looking at highs today, upper 40s and low 50s, mid and high level cloudiness, near 30 tonight. Low to mid 50s Saturday, 50s to low 60s on Sunday. Continue dry this weekend, nighttime lows in the lower 30s, trending a little colder and unsettled towards Monday and Tuesday. I'm meteorologist Mark Crowley in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
RockyMountainBargains.com, where you'll always pay half price. Why pay retail when you can get what you want at 50% off? Just go to RockyMountainBargains.com and save. Here's this week's featured item.
$50 gift cards from Rodizio Grill in Inglewood and downtown. Get them now for half price.
Get it now at RockyMountainBargains.com for 50% off. RockyMountainBargains.com, where you always pay half price. Restrictions apply. Go to RockyMountainBargains.com for complete details.
Peter Boyles in for Jeff and Bill. They'll be back on Monday. I work tomorrow. It's Saturday. So here it is on the weather. It's 50 and cloudy today. Here we begin on a Friday morning. 303-696-1971 lines are wide open. The media. Do you feel personally the need to limit your media consumption, particularly about politics? A new term I read for the first time, news avoiders. Are you a news avoider? This is how they're described. More likely to be younger, working class, less likely to be college educated, also slightly more likely to be women than men. Lack of interest in politics is often the primary mover for all of this. Many, many things about this, but people. Now, I'd like to know your media life. Where do you begin with in the mornings, middays, afternoons, and the evenings, if at all? Many, many people have the thing turned certainly away from CNN or MSNBC or even Fox, and they're watching alternative things, including sports. So 303-696-1971. Tell me your media life. Tell me how the media has changed you, and how the media has changed not only you, but how you have changed the media. Lots of things. And the news avoiders, and you personally feel the need to limit your media consumption about politics. We will come right back after this.
At this hour, I'm Christina Owayo in Dallas, and here are your top stories.
Recently released data shows that more than 271,000 migrants out of the 2.9 million who entered the country in 2024 were deported, 89,000 of which had criminal charges or convictions. The new data is back in the spotlight after a horrific crime in New York and is the focus of today's border report.
The illegal migrant that was arrested for allegedly setting a woman on fire in a New York subway, then watching her burn to death, snuck into the country back in 2018, but was deported days later by the Trump administration. However, However, sometime after that, he snuck back into the country undetected by CBP or Border Patrol and became one of the millions of gotaways who are living in the United States at this very moment.
In fact, since October of 2023, more than 900,000 gotaways crossed into the country, sparking concerns among many officials who are focused on the criminal element that is slipping past an overwhelmed Border Patrol as millions of migrants are showing up each year. In fact, Customs and Border Protection data shows that the number of criminal encounters in the past 3 years has spiked 350% to a high of almost 33,000 in fiscal year 2023. According to Border Patrol, agents have apprehended hundreds of gang members, including those from Venezuela's violent prison gang, Tren de Aragua, who have been taking over apartment complexes and have set up shop in 16 states across the nation.
In Dallas, Christina Aguayo, Salem News Channel.
Tim McGraw on a Friday. It's going to be cloudy. 50 will be the high. 710 KNUS. I'm Peter Boyles. Good morning, everyone. Sitting in for the boys. They'll be back Monday. I got tomorrow. The media. Phone number 303-696-1971. I'll read you a couple from the wall this morning. Unlike Peter, who is paid to repeat somebody else's words. Actually, I kind of pride myself in not repeating other people's words. You, Peter Boyles, and 90% of the mainstream media are untrustworthy. You have been bought and paid for. That's what happened to me in the last 5. Who pays me? I wish they'd step it up, Things are tough. Again, 90% of the media untrustworthy and bought and paid for. That's what happened to me in the last 5. You can, by the way, someone texted me, can we include talk radio? Well, of course you can. It is principally part of the media. So the question this morning is, I read this piece on this new term that I've never read before, and they are people who avoid the media. And these are these news avoiders. Do you find yourself either one or becoming one? What is your daily life like with the media? And mine's pretty random. In the car, I listen, but I also have a go to music if talk radio isn't firing my rocket. But now why? The piece is entitled, Why Millions of Americans Avoid the News and What It Means for You. 303-696-1971. News avoiders see journalists as part of a disconnected elite. This is the guy who did the study, Trust in News Project. And it is really interesting. What do you think people want from the news? There's a lot of learning experiences in talk radio, I think, in the last 5 years that we can talk about. But news avoidance and survey data and interviews with people, and he has a project entitled, and it's an interesting title, Trust in News Project. And he's now a professor. And on election day, and he was talking about what was shaping of the election, and he talked about how candidates were trying to reach these elusive audiences. The news organizations were trying to reach those that don't follow the news in the current form. The conversation's been edited for clarity, but you can read it. It's pretty scrambled. But there's something now called the Digital News Report. And this is where our business has gone. It's gone digital. And then when we were speaking with Blake this morning and talking about when's the last time you read a newspaper. And now the Digital News Report said up 43% avoid news, and up to 43% of us, that's significant, say they avoid the news in some form. It doesn't mean that 43% of the country is not consuming any news at all, but it's a clear sign of the decline in interest in the news. There's a small group of people that they're called consistent news avoiders, and they consume news less often, once a month, than anyone else. And so then they, of course, rise to the top. Americans, I think, some ways are exhausted by political news. TV ratings and the new AP, NORAC, those polls show that people are tuning out. If it is you, why? If you find yourself tuning out, you can talk radio, local television, you can see the ratings. What newspaper is left? The Denver Post. If you want to read it online, you have to pay. If you want to read it, the Dead Tree edition, you have to buy it. Do you personally feel the need to limit your media consumption about politics? And remember, we talked about this, how people felt daily being bombarded. And what about talk radio's part? So the news avoiders are there. Have you become one? And one of the things that I'd like you to share is, what's it like for you? How do mornings? What do you do middays? and I got $2. It says a lot of people are going to tell me it's streaming. It's their watch tells them, not their radio in their car, not their home television. I can't tell you the last time I watched the news. I will watch Kyle Clark if someone says, hey, watch Kyle Clark. He's going to do something one way or the other. But even Kyle Clark has kind of lost his sting. He looked foolish after that whole Venezuelan gang issue. So we got callers, and what we're going to do is take a pause, right? We're going to take the pause. We'll come back and take the callers. I'm Peter Boyles in for Jeff and Bill. Fellows will be back Monday. I'm here tomorrow on a Saturday. It's going to be cloudy and 50 today, 54 Saturday, and 60 degrees on Sunday.
RockyMountainBargains.com, where you'll always pay half price. Why pay retail when you can get what you want at 50% off? Just go to RockyMountainBargains.com and save. Here's this week's featured item.
$50 gift cards from Rodizio Grill in Inglewood and downtown. Get them now for half price.
Get it now at RockyMountainBargains.com for 50% off. RockyMountainBargains.com, where you always pay half price. Restrictions apply. Go to RockyMountainBargains.com for complete details.
We're going to call the boss. It's Friday morning, December the 27th, 2024. And 50 will be the high today. Now we have callers on the line, 303-696-1971. Peter Boyles in for the fellas. First name, because I don't see anything on
Here's Tony in Colorado Springs.
Hey, Tony in Colorado Springs. Good morning, man. Thanks for calling the show.
Hey, good morning. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Good. Well, I think there's probably a lot of apathy built in to the public.
You're fading on me. Walk back to wherever you were.
Now 6-8 years of a president that has tried to diminish all trust in any kind of institution, and media certainly fits that, right? I mean, it's all fake news, it's all, enemy of the people stuff, and unfortunately now I think they're turning to a lot of news that's very unreliable. And
do you know where enemy of the people comes from?
I can't pinpoint the precise.
It was best shown again in the novel, and more so in the novel than the motion picture Jaws. Enemy of the people. There's a it's set in Europe, and I believe it's in Sweden. And the well was poisoned in the town square, and the mayor and the burgomeisters, if I think that's what they're called, they know it. And if they tell the truth, and you remember the mayor in Jaws, who didn't want the sheriff to talk about the shark. And remember all that. In the book, it's much more elaborate than it is in the film, but that's the enemy of the people. The initial play was the enemy of the people, and it was picked up. Bentley picked it up again for Jaws. That we're going to open on what was the date? I forget. Whatever, Memorial Day or whatever day they wanted to open the beach, and the sheriff and that young marine biologist, they knew that the great white was out there. And then now, so what do? And do you open the beach, which is the role the media would play, was to cheer, oh man, hey, it's, back to the beach and it's wonderful. Don't mention the shark. And I think to a degree, some of that may have happened with the shot. And we have all kinds of different things. Certainly the lies that Bush and Cheney told. But did the media go along with that? So I take it full circle back to you. But that's where enemy of the people comes from.
Yeah, I think the media is at some level, to blame. But I also think that we just have a whole bunch of rhetoric that gets pounded into people's heads.
Oh, yeah.
That is simply not true. Just simply not true.
You're right.
And, and people vote. I don't, everybody has a right to vote however they want, but at least vote based on facts, not on something that's just plain not true.
Can I give you something from the weekend and respond to it?
Yeah.
Trump mentioning giving back the Panama Canal. And I listened to talk radio. Does anybody know anything about the history of the Panama Canal and the creating the canal and the building the canal and everything that goes with that? To say I want it back.
Yeah, and he wants to buy Greenland and he's, saying he's going to, we'll buy Greenland, we'll take it as a territory.
Mm-hmm.
And, he's an authoritarian figure, and and his followers love this. They just love the bravado. And, again, you have a right to support whoever you want, but people supported him for things that weren't true. And now I guess I hope people don't tune out from the media entirely, because I think we're going into a period that's going to go down in history, good or bad, that we're going to find out, do institutions hold? They held in his first term, but they look shakier in his second term. And I say that about the Senate. I say that about the Congress.
I don't know. He's a guy who gets
holding.
He gets a redo.
He does, and this time he's got sycophants around him. No intention of having any adults in the room, and the first time around he did, and so who knows how this is going to turn out.
I'm not sure. And like I said, I wasn't the greatest Donald Trump fan in the world. I don't know if he is needed right now at this point in time to disrupt everything that has been detrimental to my country, your country, our country for the last 50 years. That there has to be somebody or something or some moment where enough is enough. And, the United States just ends one self-inflicted war in Iraq to get themselves involved on the sidelines in two more. And
we've got 70 years of America as the indispensable nation. And that means something. And we got things wrong along the way. Iraq being one of them.
Well, Southeast Asia, I could give you a list.
Yeah, we got. You could say Vietnam. There's a lot of things that we got wrong. But the world is probably a better place when America is in a position of influence, and the isolationism that is running through the party now is really a scary.
Well, let me preface it by saying influence is one thing, bombing is another.
Well, and fine. But let's just take the facts. You hear his base and Salem, writ large, talking about how we're on the verge of a third world war in Ukraine. And the facts of the matter are the facts, just the facts. We don't have a single soldier on the ground.
That's not true. That's not true.
Okay.
There are GIs there, but they're advisors, and you would often.
All right, I'll stipulate that maybe there are advisors,
sure.
But there's a difference. There's a difference between even what's happened in pertaining to Israel. We have actual full-blown military being shot at and shooting the enemy. We don't have that in Ukraine, right? Is that a fact? You would say that's a fact? We are being shot at in the Middle East, and we are firing back in defense.
The Israelis are a surrogate of this country. The Ukrainians are not. The Ukrainians, Joe Biden has picked a fight with Vladimir Putin. That's the Ukraine. What's happening right now in the Middle East will happen again, has happened before, and will happen again. And this is going to go on and on and on. And now I'm watching, and I hope, I say this all the time, I think Donald Trump probably speaks to Netanyahu 4 or 5 times a week. I would imagine he speaks to Vladimir Putin 4 or 5 times a week. He is now the president of the United States, not sworn into office yet. And so things are what they are. And the first 100 days, most historians talk about the first 100 days of a president. These first 100 days are going to be really, really, really significant. Watch. I mean, we will see. We will see.
I hope that he does not walk off of NATO. It will be a far greater threat to the United States.
And again, I look at NATO. Okay, NATO was created after the Warsaw Pact, and this was something that comes out of the Cold War in the time of Joe Stalin. There's something called SEATO, too, that happens in Southeast Asia. Right now, listen to somebody telling me that they're going to invade Poland next. I mean, that's saber rattling. And if the United States isn't in NATO anymore, I don't understand why it's all that big of a deal. I'll give you the last comment. Then I'm going to read a couple of things here quickly, and then we'll go back.
The comment would be, Putin has had a heck of a time dealing with Ukraine when it's merely armed. To face NATO, an entity with 650 million people in who can put up that kind of a military, we could fight a war against Russia and never put a man on the firing line. As long as we continue to support NATO, they can put the bodies on the line. We just need to put equipment.
The NATO doesn't have that history that you're telling me that it has, that it goes to war with the Soviets.
To defend itself, it would. And they are our first line of defense to keep us out of war, is having them there. But it's a discussion. It's a discussion that needs more than a minute. But thanks for your time.
Good
you
call.
Have a good day, Peter.
You too. All right, got to read these to you. I love talk radio. Is anyone surprised? The first call of a Trump deranged caller. Now, Peter, you talk about the cult of Trump, but this guy and you are showing the real cult. I had a conversation. When Joe calls, I want to see you give him the kind of room to talk and finish sentences. I'll bet you don't. Talk radio critique. Are there talk avoiders? Good morning, everyone. Peter Boyles in for Jim and Jeff. For Bill and Jeff, it's Friday morning, December 27th, 2024, 710 KNUS. Phone number is 303-696-1971. We can talk about Donald Trump in Panama. We can talk about the history of Panama. I mean, for people that I listen to, just say, well, take it. It's ours. No, it's not. It isn't yours. It isn't mine. Have you been to Panama? Have you watched that? What has changed in you, and or things the same as they were before? Has the media changed you? And what is your media life like? What is it? I mean, it begins in the day and early in the morning, perhaps. It goes through the evening. Does it go all night? Do you personally feel the need to limit your media consumption about politics? And I realize that not a negative word can be said, because once it is, then you too have joined the opposite side. Look, healthy criticism and conversation are really what this business was once built upon. and it is no longer. There are news avoiders, and do you know them? I think we're talking about a little bit off air. I think I find myself probably a news avoider. I don't watch anything local. I can't tell you the last time I think, when's the last time I sat down and watched a newscast? Does that make me a news avoider? It is your turn, 303-696-1971. What is your life like with the media? How does it begin? How does it end in a 24-hour period? And have you become a news avoider? Stay here. Lines are open, 303-696-1971. Friday morning, everyone. Jeff and Bill are off. I'm Peter Boyles in for the guys. They'll be back here on Monday, and then I get to work again tomorrow. 50 will be the high today, 29 tonight, 54 on Saturday. Let me go to the Capless hotline, just read a bunch of text messaging on what we're talking about. And it's welcome, right? Morning, Mr. Boyles. For me, when the news stopped reporting and started lecturing, berating me with facts, I lost the last thread of respect. I really understand this text. At least people like Limbaugh admitted to being commentators, not reporters. There was a big difference, Doug, between a news reporter and Rush Limbaugh. Good to hear you again. First caller tries to cloak his disgust of Trump, and I'll just move to the next one. Kyle Clark represents what I call gaslight news. Peter, great job in handling anti-Trump Tony. Whenever he is presented with hard facts and someone understands history, he's speechless. And that's what we are talking about this morning. Personally consuming the media consumption in your life. The man is with us. He's been great in the opening act, ladies and gentlemen. We return to the man with a plan, Blake Olson. My boy, there you are again.
All right. Hey, great hearing your voice, Peter. Great to have you with us.
You too.
On Friday. I love it. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas. Belated. And you got down from the ski slopes and you're all safe and happy and healthy.
Do you do New Year's Eve?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, we like to do it at the house, keep it simple, but we have a lot of football going on. How about you? What are you doing?
I have been invited to a couple of different events.
Right.
Sure.
Cool.
It is amateur night.
Cut a rug? Yeah, it is amateur night. I am right there with you.
And I've been part of some New Year's Eves. It's like, but probably.
What was the craziest New Year's Eve you've ever been to that you remember?
I don't remember. I really don't.
Was it in Denver?
Oh, yeah. Well, there was probably a couple different locations.
Okay.
It was like.
Okay.
Yeah, it was New Year's Eve, and it was, you were taught to behave that way,
right?
Right. And
good point.
I never did Times Square.
Yeah, neither have I.
And that looks like less fun than
I can't even imagine.
Mike Boyle, our colleague Mikey, my friend, he has this New Year's Eve party that's early in the day.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, and it's over with. I mean, he gets it.
Good idea.
No, it's a Mikey Boyle. We should get him on the show maybe tomorrow. But he has a party at his house, and I think it starts at like 6 o'clock in the afternoon. He wraps that puppy up, but
that's good.
I think to myself, I used to do that, except I just started at 6 o'clock in the afternoon. And by the way, I need your football picks. Someone wants them, so. It is all yours. Go ahead.
There's so much football going on. Oh my goodness, it'd take forever to.
Do the Broncos really have a shot at this?
Yeah, let's see. I think they have to win tomorrow to wrap it up, and they can make the playoffs. So I got to double check that actually, but yeah, I think that's what the latest scenario is. I get updated on the NFL from my 8th grader, so
yeah.
It's kind of like your grandson probably updates you on a lot of stuff. How's he doing, by the way?
He's great.
How old is he now?
He's 12. He's a funny kid.
Oh, that's cool.
But it is a good athlete, and
that's great.
It's all coming together. Yeah,
I love it. I love it. All right, 30 and clear in Denver. Expecting a high of 47 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story: DIA with multiple delays and cancellations currently. According to FlightAware, over 500 flights were delayed at DIA Thursday. Over 30 were canceled. Southwest and United had more than 150 delays each. New border czar Tom Homan says the use of family detention centers for migrants is on the table. Homan spoke at an interview Thursday and said that, quote, we've got to end catch and release of migrants, end of quote, and said that this includes family units also. Homan said that protecting children is a main driver behind their proposed zero tolerance border policy. Mr. Wonderful, Kevin O'Leary, who's a Canadian, says he likes the idea of combining the U.S. and Canadian economies.
There's 41 million Canadians, basically the population of California, sitting on the world's largest amounts of all resources, including the most important, energy and water. Canadians over the holidays, the last 2 days, have been talking about this. They want to hear more. And so, there's obviously a lot of issues, more details, but what this could be is the beginning of an economic union. Think about the power of combining the two economies, erasing the border between Canada and the United States, and putting all that resource up to the northern borders where China and Russia are knocking on the door. So secure that, give a common currency, figure out taxes across the board, get everything trading both ways, create a new, almost EU-like passport. I like this idea, and at least half of Canadians are interested. The problem is the government's collapsing in Canada right now. Nobody wants Trudeau to negotiate this deal. I don't want him doing it for me, so I'm going to go to Mar-a-Lago. I'll start the narrative. The 41 million Canadians, I think most of them would trust me on this deal.
Interesting. Keep your eyes on that one. The man accused of burning a woman to death on a New York City subway is due back in court today. The victim was sitting on an F train Sunday morning when Sebastian Zapata allegedly approached her and used a lighter to ignite her clothes. Police testimony says he used his shirt to fan the flames. A pedestrian is dead after being hit by a train in Denver. Authorities say the pedestrian was hit near West Ellsworth Avenue and Rio Grande Boulevard around 2:10 Thursday afternoon. The unidentified person was taken to the hospital and pronounced dead. The death is still under investigation. Health experts are concerned about a silent COVID surge hitting over the holidays that remain. They're worried for two reasons. First, because this year's winter COVID wave is getting off to a late start, and recent CDC data shows that high or very high levels of the virus that causes COVID is in wastewater in 21 states. Broncos and the Bengals tomorrow. They need a win to get into the postseason. CU takes on BYU in the Alamo Bowl tomorrow. CSU faces Miami in the Miami of Ohio in the Arizona Bowl. Plenty of bowl games today and throughout the weekend, and actually over the next 2 weeks. I feel sorry for my wife when I say that. 28 in Westminster, 27 in Littleton, 30 in Denver. Pete continues in for Jeff and Billy. It is Friday. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Your KNUS forecast for the Denver metro area this Friday calls for cool and pleasant late December weather conditions. Temperatures continue to be above average. We'll be looking at highs today, upper 40s and low 50s, mid and high level cloudiness, near 30 tonight. Low to mid 50s Saturday, 50s to low 60s on Sunday. Continue dry this weekend, nighttime lows in lower 30s, trending a little colder and unsettled towards Monday and Tuesday. I'm meteorologist Mark Crowley in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Morning, everybody. Peter Boyles in for Jeff and Bill. They'll be back here Monday morning. I get to work here tomorrow at 9 o'clock following John Caldera. Made it to a Friday. We're in the aftermath now of Christmas. New Year's straight ahead. It's from December the 27th, 2024. Good old 710 KNUS. The weather going to be cloudy, 50 today, 29 tonight, 54 Saturday, and 60 on Sunday. Interesting first hour. A lot of stuff on the capless line. critical of the show, but again, that's what we're supposed to be doing. And this goes back to something I started reading about it yesterday afternoon, and it's about this demo called News Avoiders. And I've never seen that term before. And it talks about people who are beyond the frustrations, they say, with sensationalism and the sense of what's being covered in the news. It's just things they say they don't care about. And I heard that from callers. There's lots of things in this country, and the news avoiders, have you become one? And the more we were talking about it, the more, and I was thinking to myself, perhaps I become one, because I won't watch anything local. I don't watch local. I read Westward. I work for the Chronicle, so I read the Chronicle. But what are the reasons you are giving to avoid the news? And people avoid the news. It seems to be a mixed bag of things. And there's a set of people who emphasize that it's not about the news at all, but it's about what is being said. Okay, I get the point. So we have this world that's out there now, 303-696-1971. And has this one changed for you? And they call it media life or media consumption, and the personal need to limit your media consumption about politics in particular. And so many people have responded, yeah, I do. Among news avoiders, there's much lower rates of political participation altogether. Why? Well, there are so many interviews with podcasters now and the people that they call news influencers, that people go away from the traditional screens or the microphone shows. The New York Times is a classic example. You look at how these people have dropped in terms of circulation. So some news avoiders also think news organizations misrepresent people like themselves. I got a text here. I'm going to roll back to it. And I was told I was somehow made or something. I don't know. Let me try it one more time, see if I can find it. Anyhow, but it was that I was on the take. Here it is. You, Peter Boyles, and 90% of the mainstream media are untrustworthy. You have all been bought and paid for. That's what happened to me in the last 5. I want to know who's paying. Do we get any callers on the line? Yeah, give me a. I can't.
We do. Jay from Castle Rock.
Jay from Castle Rock. Jay from Castle Rock. You're on the morning show. Thank you. It's Friday, and welcome to the show.
Good morning, sir. Great to hear your voice.
Thank you very much.
I miss my favorite real reporter from Channel 9, Adele Awakawa. I think she was phenomenal. When she left, 9 seemed to have fallen apart. What do you think?
There's Inside Baseball, and they were cutting salaries. Same thing happened over with Mike Rose and a lot of different people. And so when these new corporates came in, people were more than earning their salaries. And that's when, of course, I mean, Mike had a great show, the money that Limbaugh made. Adele made a lot of money. And so they came to those people and said, okay, you have a job here, but you don't, like, I don't know what she was making before, so I won't even guess, but now you can do this gig for, $150, and you still have to do this and you have to do more. And so she said no. But at that point, then management could say, we wanted her to stay. This is a gimmick. This is a verbal gimmick. We wanted her to stay, and she said no. So they put it on her. Now they did. It's crying time. That's what they're doing.
Well, she always helped us with our charities. She's a
good driver. She's a good driver.
Good driver. She has a race car. She used to come out and race at our track out east. She has a Porsche.
She's a Porsche. I've been with her. Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I'll tell you just a quick story about her. When we built a track out east, she runs in what's called the Porsche Club. and she has a very nice car.
Mm-hmm.
And some dude cut her off. I hope she's listening. And she got out in the pits and ran down to find this guy, because this guy was a buffoon. You know, when you're racing, she's actually a very good car racer,
Yeah.
and she always donated her time to our events that we did for free.
Wow.
And that's a big deal.
Yeah. I mean, she's great.
You don't find
yeah,
that.
No. And lots of times now you don't even know who the anchors are, which is, that's the sadness, is they've taken that part of it's been taken away as well. But the idea that any monkey can climb a tree and get a coconut, and that's how these money managers thought. And there were people that were on that job. Adele Arakawa was a great example. She was on that job for what, 25 years?
Probably.
And they had well, the late Ward Lucas told me that at the best they had like this amazing number for their 10 o'clock news, and it was Ward, and it was, you know, it was Adele, and you know, the whole and they had some staggering number, like a 39 share or something, meaning that of every 100 sets turned on, 39 of them in Denver were turned on to Channel 9.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, that's, I mean, yeah, that's unheard of. And, but then, you know, it's all gone.
I know. And it's kind of I think they changed companies too. Aren't they a different ownership now?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah.
One little story I'll tell you. This is a cool thing about doing charity work. She was literally on the lawn that you had been on at a specific location on South Santa Fe. And that was the year that she met Bob Bondurant and spent time with him. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. No.
So the other thing I'll tell you about her is, and I know this from other people that know her, she wasn't ever looking for anything. She wouldn't go to promotional events and ask for things, whatever they may be. And that's just, I think that's very admirable for a celebrity in my world.
Well, you know, times have, I mean, can you name, other than Kyle Clark, who has his own show, can you name another news anchor on Channel 9?
No, I can't.
Neither can I.
No.
I mean, I can't. I know one or two people that are on the air. I don't know. I don't think I know anybody over at Fox. I don't know anybody at 7. I mean, and we used to know everybody. I mean, everybody knew everybody. I don't know. I'm not saying that it's, but there were people who made their bones who, and the same thing is true. I mean, Dick Kreck just passed away.
Oh, wow.
And Bill Husted is gone. And
wow.
One that a lot of people don't know, wonderful woman, worked with her for years. Her name is Cynthia Hessen. Cynthia passed away.
Unbelievable.
And but it's like, and we knew guys. I mean, I really probably do sound like an old guy, but these were the people that you knew in the media. Now, who do you know that writes for the Denver Post now?
I do not. I actually, I'm not normally here, but when it's thrown in my friend where I stay in his driveway, because they throw that paper during like Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Sure.
I use it as a wheel chalk for my big Duramax diesel.
In other words,
everybody in the neighborhood how I feel about that.
If I ask you to name a columnist at the Rocky or any of those other places, no, it's not there. Can anybody do it
today?
Let me try Adam, who's a younger guy.
Yeah.
Adam, can you name people at Channel 9 or at the?
Other than Kyle Clark, I've got nothing.
Yeah, but Kyle Clark gives you a radio show. But it's absolutely true. So, can you name anybody at 7?
Nobody.
Fox?
Nobody.
All right. So somebody just sent a text. Oh, come on, Kim Christensen. Okay, I don't know.
Never heard that name.
See, but she's the early anchor. I'm sure I've done a handshake, but I don't know her. But we like you were mentioning Adele. because we all hung out at races and did stuff. Adele would come. She had a one-piece white driving suit. She had a white Porsche. She could, and she could drive. And so,
where did you see her race at? What track?
We raced go-karts together.
That's the most fun.
Yeah, we raced
go-karts. You don't
go-karts.
have a problem. Race cars are expensive.
It was during the Denver Grand Prix, and they put on a celebrity race, quote unquote. And she came, and I got to race it, and she'd blaze you. I mean, she could flat after get it. So no, so I mean,
who put on the Denver Grand Prix, right? Bill Daniels.
Oh yeah, well the first one.
But he was behind it. Yeah, the first one.
Yeah.
And let me tell you a funny story about that if you have a second.
Real quick.
The cars were so fast that they would suck the manholes up, and so Denver had to go around and weld all the manholes down.
I heard that story. I heard they could pull them up. All right, we're rolling.
I didn't know you then. Good job.
Thanks, man.
God bless you.
All right, you too. 303-693. Our phone number, I should say, our lines are open, 303-696-1971. Do you know anybody? I mean, it's really interesting. I think that speaks volumes. And even watching the networks, who do you know? Who do you know on network TV? The column asking about the columnist is, as I mentioned, Dick Kreck has passed away, and Bill Husted is gone, and we have lost Cynthia Hessen. But they were important names. You would go, and I'm sure that people did it on different jobs and say, hey man, did you read Kreck this morning? Or did you read, we all would read Dusty Saunders, or we would read Joanne Ostro. Did you read them? Not anymore. 303-696-1971. What has your media life turned into? What has changed with you? Are you a media consumer now or less? And I like that term. They're called media avoiders or news avoiders. Have you become one? All right, here we go. 303-696-1971.
At this hour, I'm Christina Owayo in Dallas, and here are your top stories.
3 people were shot and 1 other stabbed after a family dispute broke out at an airport in Arizona. The incident happened in Phoenix over the Christmas holiday following a physical altercation. Mitch McCann reports.
Police in Phoenix say the shooting happened at 9:45 on Christmas night outside the security checkpoints at the Sky Harbor Airport. According to the Associated Press, 1 woman and 2 men were shot, with the woman's injuries described as life-threatening. The men are expected to survive, and another man with a stab wound is in a stable condition. A police officer told reporters that this was a family dispute that escalated, and there had been a physical fight before the shooting. It's reported that a man and a girl were detained by police a short time later. In New York, Mitch McCann, Salem News Channel.
A Florida woman is in custody after she allegedly stabbed a woman 14 times over a bad pizza delivery tip. Authorities say the victim's 5-year-old daughter witnessed the entire attack. The Osceola County Sheriff's Office says that Brianna Alvelo has been charged with stabbing the woman in her motel room in Kissimmee, Florida, a short time after delivering pizza to her. And Alvelo's tip ended up being $2. The woman is also accused of stealing things from the room. She is facing charges of home invasion, attempted murder, kidnapping, and aggravated assault.
In Dallas, Christina Owayo, Salem News Channel.
always pay half price. Why pay retail when you can get what you want at 50% off? Just go to RockyMountainBargains.com and save. Here's this week's featured item.
$50 gift cards from Rodizio Grill in Inglewood and downtown. Get them now for half price.
Get it now at RockyMountainBargains.com for 50% off. RockyMountainBargains.com, where you always pay half price. Restrictions apply. Go to RockyMountainBargains.com for complete details.
Three voices in a row. Good morning, everyone. It's a Friday, December 27th, 2024. Good old 710 KNUS. Our weather, 50 the high, and tonight, 29 tonight. Jumping up 54 Saturday and 60 degrees on Sunday. Lines are open again, 303-696-1971. I think when you in a drive show, you go off and on, full lines, open lines. And so if you were calling a moment ago, caught a busy, you can jump on the show now, 303-696-1971. A lot of people sending us text messaging. We will read it. What is the topic this morning? And again, it's open lines, so it's catch as catch can. But Americans claiming now in these new studies, they're exhausted by the news and television ratings, and these new polls show people are tuning out. Many Americans since the election tuned out. People are mentally exhausted, suggests the poll. Everybody now knows what's coming, and they're just taking some time off. Television ratings. This is a Nielsen, very accurate, new poll, clearly illustrating the phenomenon. 2/3 of Americans, adults, have felt, they said, the need to limit media consumption about politics and about government because of overload. Smaller percentages, of course, of us are limiting their intake of news about overseas conflict, the economy, or climate change. Election news on CNN and MSNBC, say it again, do it right, MSNBC, are taking up too much, they said, of people's time. So they broke away. The poll conducted in early December found about 7 in 10 of us say they're stepping back from political news. The percentage, there's reasons to celebrate. They say Trump's victory. 6 in 10 Republicans say they felt they need to take some time away. 303-696-1971. Fox News Channel, it's a favorite news network for Trump fans. The post-election average of 2.68 million viewers is up 13%. There's going to be lessons learned there. The post-election slump, the big ones are, again, in the major networks. So 303-696-1971, it is your turn. What has changed for you? And what have you changed about it? As Joe Scarborough, his numbers are down, listen to this, 35% since Election Day, 35%. CNN points out it's been suffering in the television ratings. Its streaming and digital ratings have been consistently dropping. In the previous years, network ratings bounced back, but not on this one. And the polls indicate that Americans want, this is, again, for us, less talk about politics from public figures in general. The ride is not going to be smooth. The clown show will start. When Taylor Swift is the headline day in and day out, right? The survey found that Americans are more likely to approve than disapprove rather than approve of celebrities, large companies, professional athletes speaking about politics as well. So some Americans have turned away from political news altogether. And there's all this new, and again, I've not seen those terms before, news avoiders. Are you one? And what has changed for you? And what is your media life like? Where do you begin? I'm just here filling in for the fellas. Where do you begin? Where do you end up? What do? Do you go to the radio? You go to the internet, the computer? You go to the television, either the cable TV outlets or, again, the traditional networks have really, really, really been beat. So 303-696-19. Here's the phone number, 303-696-1971. Let me go. Can I read a bunch of these? We have time to read them. I want to break. I have time to read them. All right. August 2020, the Blue Rally was attacked. You said Payson was somewhere watching. He was. 2015, Boyles would have told the whole story on who, what, why, the story of Payson at the back of the Blue Rally. This is where you showed me you were no longer a trusted media. He was in the Capitol watching Antifa gear up, wasn't he? Who was with him? Who gave the okay? Who benefited from the attack? There was a reason not to do it then. There's a reason not to do it now. The fact that I said he was there should have been enough, but you do what you wish. Let me see. DJT will outspend both FDR and Reagan combined. Hey, Pete bought the order last night. I'm confused how the Torres guy got into the gang. He explained it, but I'm still not understanding. Off topic, sorry, but I know you'll know the answer. Call the show, Holly, and we'll talk about that, because his last name really was Martinez, and he was a counterfeiter in Philadelphia. Jimmy Sangenberger is at the Post. I'd forgotten that. And then, of course, last but not least, come on now, Kim Christensen. You're right. All right, your turn. 303-696-1971. We'll take a turnaround. Adam, it's all yours. We come right back after this. Morning, everybody. Peter Boyles in for the guys. The boys will be back on Monday. I got tomorrow morning at 9 as well. 710 KNUS Weather Center weather, cloudy 50 today, 29 tonight, 54 on Saturday. And we'll go to Holly. I said, Holly, call, and lines are jammed, and she's calling about the Berg film, or the film The Order. Hey, Holly, thanks, and thanks for calling the show.
Oh, good morning, Pete. I hate the way I sound on the radio, so I can make it fast.
Me too. Me too. I hate the way I sound. Go ahead.
I was confused because even though the Torres character, was he real?
He was, but there's a number of people whose names aren't the same as they were in real life, so they changed them. He was a counterfeiter.
But he was representative of what sounded like, Hispanic or a Mexican
But he
heritage.
told them that he was European. Kevin Flynn goes into great detail about that in the book. He was in Philadelphia, and he was a counterfeiter. And they were running a counterfeit ring or a counterfeit operation. And so, as you know, the Secret Service is in charge of catching counterfeiters. One of the things they do besides protect the president. And they caught him, and he rolled over on them. And he was one of the principal reasons that the FBI got to know exactly who those guys were, and more particular about the operation. As you probably know, there was a lot of manufacturing of people in that film. I did a show last Saturday with Kevin Flynn, and
I heard it.
Well, yeah,
I don't track well.
and no, that's okay. But if you want to go watch that, it's up on the website on 710 KNUS, and click on shows, click on me, and the interview with Kevin, who of course is Kevin's the guy who really does know the story.
So the FBI knew exactly who he was in real life, but he just lied. And
well, no,
it
was the Secret Service is one that caught him because of counterfeiting, but they knew who he was. Because he ratted them all out. The way the movie says they were caught isn't the way they were caught. The killing of Allen, in fact, in the movie, and I did it with another interview recently, and I said, Berg has this message: peace on earth, goodwill toward men. His message, that was never his message. That was I don't think the man ever said peace on earth, goodwill toward men in his entire life. That wasn't who he was. And they play this voice that is saying all these wonderful things before he's killed. It just wasn't so.
Yeah, do you know what happened to the older gentleman that had kind of like that church situation?
Richard Butler. Richard Butler died. Yeah. He
but he didn't get caught for anything.
No, he wasn't in on it. He was in on Richard Butler was the spiritual head of their organization. Their organization was called the cross of the Lord, the sword and the cross of the Lord. And remember when they're in that church that Richard Butler had, there was a shield up on the wall that look that up, to something the Lord in the arm of the Lord, but that was Richard Butler. Covenant, there it is. Carve it at the sword and the arm of the Lord. That's it. That was Richard Butler's, and they had broken away from Butler.
So these people are just bizarre anyway, but was Jewish people their main target, or they just hated Allen?
They hated Allen, but yes. It was Jews, it was blacks, remember the old Klan was anti-Catholic. But it was Jews, blacks, Latinos, and gays, and the standard list of people to hate. And and Butler takes it just so far, but Butler's also money raising, and he's also living this life in Idaho. And along comes Robert J. Matthews, who said, we're gonna take this to the next level, and of course he does.
That character, when I saw his face, I was like, that is a familiar face. He reminds me of a really, really young Tom Cruise.
Oh, yeah. But listen, Bob Matthews was handsome. Bob Matthews was charismatic. As Kevin Flynn and Gary Gerhardt said, 90%. Kevin and I spoke over the last weekend, and Kevin said 90% of the people that ended up either dead or dying in prison would have been home with their feet up on their recliner, living off their 401ks, if it wasn't for Bob Matthews. That Matthews recruited them, went way beyond Richard Butler, and said it's time to act.
So it seemed like they portrayed the crosses and Christianity and stuff, but it was so opposite of what, you would think Christianity would represent.
Well, Christianity, like all religions, can be used and misused. Butler, they had a church here in LaPorte, Colorado, honchoed by a guy named Pete Peters, who we clashed a couple of times. And the church was called Jesus Christ Christian. And one of their beliefs was that Christ wasn't Jewish, that Christ was, quote, a white man, not a Jew, which is, okay, fine. But that'd
be weird. The only white guy living down there. I don't think so.
No, of course not. But there you can, if somebody, this is the thing when you read historians about leaders, and I think we're seeing all kinds of different things again in the world. If people are willing to swallow the doctrine, they are able to go or commit. It's called the leader, and Adolf Hitler is an example that comes to mind. Not Joseph Stalin, because Stalin just seizes everything after Lenin, but Hitler really comes out of the bog. He comes out of the ground, literally. And although everything is ready for him to be the match head, he's not. He is exactly that. And so those are interesting people. They show up. Cromwell was like that. The list goes on. So that's what
What happened? I'm sorry.
No, you say real quick.
Just what happened to that whole situation? Are they gone, or is there new generations there?
No, it sticks. It stays. It comes to the surface. It goes away, but it only goes underground. It comes back again. And that was one of the points that Kevin and Gary made. This is just an example of that anti-Semitic, anti-Black, anti-Catholic, go down the list of who they hate,
right?
And they got a real long list, and they're back now, and they will be back again. And some things don't go away.
Yeah. Okay, well, I was just confused about that.
He was. I think his real name was Martinez. But
that just seems weird to me.
No. Well, he was a counterfeiter, and so they needed him, and so they made him a white European. Coming back on the other side.
The answer. Thank you.
You're welcome. It's Friday. Stay here. Open lines continue. I'm Peter Boyles, in for the guys. 710 KNUS. Morning, everybody. It's a Friday. Peter Boyles in for Jeff and Bill. The boys will be back on Monday. Here's Merle Haggard, Strangers. I'll be here tomorrow at 9 o'clock as well. 710 KNUS. We are Denver's talk station on a Friday, cloudy and 50, and tomorrow 54, and on Sunday it's 60 degrees. We're talking about the media. Mark came in. We were talking about the media as well. The man joins us. Blake Olson joins us. It has been interesting, the responses that people have made on the media in general. Blake, do you believe in general, and I'll ask the same question of Mark, do you believe that people dislike the media?
Absolutely.
I do too.
Yeah, I'd say well over half of Americans do.
Marky, do you think that he's not lit up? We gotta anyhow, it's another morning at 710 KNUS. It's like another Pleasant Valley morning. According to this year's
Pete, I do think that the
according to this year's digital news report, up to 43% of us say they avoid the news in some form. And it doesn't mean that 43% of the country is not consuming any news, but it's a clear sign of decline in interest in the news. Now, this new term came up, and I bounced that off you. Mark, have you ever heard news avoiders?
That's a new term to me, but I would put myself in that category. I mean, there was a day when I was what they call a P1 for 9 News, and now I turn on Dave Frazier to watch the weather on 31, and that's it.
All right. Same thing back to you. Did you ever hear, we talked about this earlier, but Blake, have you ever heard the term news avoider?
Yeah, well, not until you said it this morning. But as Mark said, I think all of us, especially people who listen to this radio station, probably look at things a little differently than the majority of people in the way of news gathering. And yes, I think a lot of us have been avoiding this for at least a decade, at least.
Do you feel the need? This is again a question from the ask. Do you personally feel the need to limit your media consumption about politics?
I do, just because I don't. I mean, I know how to compartmentalize it. I have to, or else I'll probably get divorced, honestly, and my kids probably won't talk to me. So I compartmentalize it, and that's good for me. I try not to do too much of it on the weekends, honestly, and at night. And I keep up to date with stuff. I mean, you can consume this stuff 24 hours a day,
and that's what CNN counted on.
Yeah, right.
Mark,
exactly.
Thought, and then I got one more. And then we'll
same thing. You know, I just was on vacation in Germany at the end of November, completely out of touch, and it was one of the greatest things that I experienced. And I did not know, for example, that Daniel Penny had been acquitted until I got back. In the
Europeans didn't carry it.
No, I mean, I didn't watch it, even if they had carried it. The only thing of news quality that I watched at all was the opening of Notre Dame in Paris.
That was incredible.
Yep.
All right, one more for you guys. Television ratings. And there's a new poll that clearly illustrates this phenomenon. 2/3 of American adults say they have permanently felt the need to limit television consumption about politics and government because of the overload. And this is from AP, Center for Public Affairs Research. Election guides, election news on CNN, MSNBC are taking up too much of people's time. They don't watch it. And it's really interesting given the outcome. Poll finds that more Democrats than Republicans are stepping away from the news. So back to this question, television ratings. This would be a big football weekend, but that doesn't count when it comes to news and politics, does it, Blake?
No,
I'm giving you. I'm giving you the out card there.
You know what? I'm so old. I forgot the question.
That's
so
right.
what is the question again?
There isn't one.
There isn't one. Okay.
No, do you have is your television on as much as it used to be?
No.
No.
Yeah, not at all. However, you just brought up a good point. That is the only. I think that is the saving grace for TV is live sports. Live sports, people want to watch it on a big screen and with their family and friends or whatever. So I that's what's going to save them, because I mean, otherwise they couldn't promote their sitcoms that nobody watches, their news programs that nobody watches, their reality shows that for the most part nobody watches. I mean, nobody in that age range that is younger than us.
Look at what the Denver Post does with sports. It's there. It really has. That's what saves the Post. If you look at the sports section, look at the advertising, and whether it's high school or pro or college or universality of sports, it really saves the Denver Post. So. Your
right.
point's well taken. No, it's
probably saved local TV in Denver also. Really, I mean, what leads the news on Sunday nights?
Please,
Sunday afternoon, and sometimes on Saturday, and it will this weekend.
All right, Mark, comment, and then we'll break and we'll give the newscast.
Yeah, same thing. I am essentially, even though I still have my cable. The only thing I watch on cable now is sports. Other than that, I'm on all of the subscription.
What do you Adam? We kept you out of this. These are our young demo. Do you don't watch much television at all, do you?
I do not. I don't have cable. Haven't had cable in 15 years.
Wow.
So if I want to watch something, I find it on streaming or a YouTube clip, something like that. Yeah, no TV for me.
Whew. Open lines 303-696-1971. Blake Olson has the news. I'm Peter Boyles. This is a Friday morning, 710 KNUS.
All right. Thanks, guys. Thank you, Peter. And Adam is really young. 30 and clear in Denver, expecting a high of 47 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story, if you're heading to the airport this morning, check before you leave. DIA with multiple delays and cancellations currently. According to FlightAware, over 500 flights were delayed at DIA Thursday. Over 30 were canceled. So Southwest and United had more than 150 delays each. More details are being released about the arrest of a mother and a father who allegedly abandoned their 1-month-old baby on an Adams County roadway. Investigators say Jarvis Sims and Christina Thurman were seen arguing in the 7400 block of Pecos on Christmas morning. The man placed the baby's car seat in the median of the roadway and walked away, leaving the child alone for several minutes. Doctors later say that the baby's urine tested positive for cocaine. Sims and Jarvis have been charged with felony child abuse and will not be allowed to have any contact with the infant. The man accused of lighting a woman on fire in a New York City subway will be back in court today. The victim was sitting on an F train when Sebastian Zapata allegedly approached her and used a lighter to ignite her clothes. Prosecutors argued that the 33-year-old admitted during interrogation that he was the man authorities saw on surveillance video, claiming he didn't know what happened because he consumed alcohol. CNN's Abby Phillip continues to cover for the Biden crime family.
I'm still waiting.
Speculative?
After 4 years of Donald Trump.
Did money not change hands?
Scott.
Did it not?
4 years of Donald Trump, 4 years of a Joe Biden DOJ looking into these very things. I'm still waiting to see.
Well, he can't be charged. He's the president.
Right? I'm
Joe
still
Biden
waiting.
Can't be charged.
I'm not talking about charges. I'm still waiting to see the proof of Joe Biden enriching himself. I take his brother and his son, perhaps.
I'll give you
but that
I'll
is,
give
I
you
think that
the
has yet to
direct line.
materialize. Otherwise,
I'll give you the
your
direct line.
colleague,
A
James Comer, could have produced the evidence, and he didn't.
He did. A Chinese company transferred money to a shell company owned by Hunter and Jim Biden that then transferred money directly to Jim and Sarah Biden's shell company that then transferred the money to Jim and Sarah's personal account, who then immediately wrote a check for $40,000 to Joe Biden. So
that wasn't enough for Abby Phillips. That was Mike Lawler, along with Scott Jennings, trying to open her eyes a little bit. Another South Korean president is being impeached. A large majority in the South Korean parliament voted for Prime Minister Han Duck-seo to be impeached 2 weeks after taking over as acting president. Han was expected to bring stability back to America's closest ally, but South Korean lawmakers claim he was refusing demands to immediately appoint justices to fill vacancies at the country's constitutional court to uphold former President Yoon Suk Yeol's impeachment. Health experts are concerned about the silent COVID surge hitting over the holidays. They're worried for two reasons. First, because this year's winter COVID wave is getting off to a late start, and recent CDC data shows that high or very high levels of the virus that causes COVID in wastewater is in 21 states. All right, the Broncos and the Bengals tomorrow. If the Broncos win, they clinch their first postseason berth since 2015. Big day tomorrow for the Broncos. CU takes on BYU in the Alamo Bowl in San Antonio tomorrow. CSU faces Miami of Ohio in the Arizona Bowl. And there are 5 bowl games today. 28 in Centennial, 27 in Arvada, 30 in Denver. Pete continues in for Jeff and Billy. It's Friday. Blake Olson, News Talk 710, KNUS.
Your KNUS forecast for the Denver metro area this Friday calls for cool and pleasant late December weather conditions. Temperatures continue to be above average. We'll be looking at highs today, upper 40s and low 50s, mid and high level cloudiness, near 30 tonight. Low to mid 50s Saturday, 50s to low 60s on Sunday. Continue dry this weekend, nighttime lows in lower 30s, trending a little colder and unsettled towards Monday and Tuesday. I'm meteorologist Mark Crowley in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Peter Boyles in for the boys. They got the day off. It's a Friday morning, 710 KNUS, Denver's talk station, December 27th, 2024. You heard the weather. One of those days. Mark Crowley sitting in studio. Adam's got the con. We go to the calls. We're talking. Well, it's in Catch Can Talk Radio. This is Mike in Littleton. Hey, Mike, thanks. Good morning. You're on the show.
Well, good morning, Peter. Good topic. You always kind of hook me in when you bring up this news stuff. I would say I am not a news avoider, but I'm a news limiter.
Okay.
I limit this stuff. And I think I told you before, but I'm old enough that I grew up with the nightly news once a night and reading the Denver Post once a day.
Mm-hmm.
Or especially. That was a big treat. Now I find that the news, the quantity has just increased. It's blowing up. It's all the time. But the quality, the content is so thin or missing that I'm not learning anything. And I find myself, when I used to watch TV, and it was like, what did I just do? I just wasted 30 minutes.
Mark Crowley's over here nodding his head to everything you're saying. Here's what happened, or from my reading, what happened. CNN becomes the little engine that could. And the first Gulf War, they were there. And
I remember.
And I mean, Mark, go ahead. I don't know, but they're doing something with your microphone. Would you mic up, Mark, please?
That puts CNN on the map.
Absolutely. I was there, and they were just over the top, and they were known then as the little engine that could, and they were literally everywhere, and people tuned in, and they made their bones, and so all these other guys. You know what MSNBC stands for, Mike?
Microsoft.
There it is.
Network,
isn't it?
Microsoft.
Okay.
Yeah, Microsoft NBC.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's Bill Gates, or it was Bill Gates.
You bet. Absolutely.
So they go ahead. I'm sorry. And then of course Roger Ailes, the infamous Roger Ailes. Rupert Murdoch backs up the truck and says, create me a 24/7 network. And he does, and it's called Fox.
Well, I heard Mark earlier talk about, being tuned out of the news for a month or whatever number of weeks. And that's what I'm doing basically on a daily basis. I'll jump on the internet and look at the Gateway Pundit or something for a little bit, but it's like, this is clickbait stuff, and this is, I'll look at some of it. But as an example, I don't have a smartphone. I don't want that stuff blaring at me all the time. But I got 3 sons that are late 20s, early 30s, and that, the Butler assassination last summer. I'm sitting there, whatever, on the couch or doing nothing as usual. But they knew about that within minutes of it happening. Then they're, telling me about it, and they've got videos on their phones, and it's like, are you kidding me?
There were studies.
I wouldn't have seen it until 6 hours later, probably.
We've talked about this before, but there were studies when Abraham Lincoln was assassinated. It was like 3-4 days later, there were still American citizens that did not know Mr. Lincoln was dead. And then when you jump ahead to Jack Kennedy's murder, that within by 4 hours or whatever the time frame was, 5 hours, the American people by and large knew that Jack Kennedy was dead. And it kept moving up and moving up and moving up. When Ronald Reagan was shot by John Hinckley, it was something like 12 or 13 minutes. When I don't know what the numbers are when Donald Trump was shot, but I bet they were quicker than you can imagine. I bet it were. I got a phone call. Peter, go to work. Kelly Michaels. Trump's been shot. Wow. And the minute that I spoke with Kelly Michaels, I had the phone, the radio was on, and news breaks out, we break in, and they said Donald Trump had been shot. So, I mean, it just kind of tightens up.
The smoke hadn't cleared the barrel by the time people knew about that.
Very good. That's a great line. No, it's true. Yeah.
Yeah, we have lived through, I mean, you and I and our generation, a technological revolution with communications and the internet. And we're in a zone now. I don't know where it's going, but it's overwhelming.
Yep.
And there's a lot of people now that, for instance, my sons that grew up with that as a norm.
Yep.
They don't even realize what they're kind of swimming in, if you know what I mean. It's like, so I've got to avoid it. I've got to, get, first of all, if you're watching something all the time, what are you doing? You got to live your life and do something.
That's what Mark Crowley says.
Yeah. And I'm here at Dark 30 every day. I'm in a news station.
Yeah.
And I don't pay attention to what's on the news.
No. And it's been a job that I've been involved with for, God, I don't even know how many years. Here I am as an old guy coming in, loving it, coming back into work. Same thing. Michael, thank you. I'm going to jump. Let's go to Brian in Arvada. We have a line open. Brian, it's Friday morning. Welcome to 710 KNUS.
Merry Christmas, Pete. Happy New Year.
Thank you. You too, man. Thank you very much.
I'll date myself. In high school, we didn't have cell phones. My dad had a pager for work. That was like the biggest technological thing going on at that time. And, being a political science major in the mid-90s, the news cycles were just subtle. After I graduated, I was an MSNBC nut, watching that every day.
Yep.
And then, a show came out, Hannity and Combs.
Yep.
And I started watching that because you could get both sides. And that was a really good show. And then I cut my teeth on talk radio with Mike Rosen and Rush Limbaugh
Sure.
before I started listening to you. And Mike was just reasonable. He still is, but he was just reasonable. And even remember the Caplis and Silverman show?
I'm trying to forget it.
Well, I know, but I like that one too, because you're there again. You're getting both sides. But I tell you,
What side was that?
Well,
and
their sides.
I know. I'm pulling your wire.
It was their sides.
I'm pulling your wire.
You are. I love you, Pete. And
Thank you.
It was just a great. It was a good. But the news just went away from that. And right after the 2020 election, I cut the cord. I stopped.
Well,
no cable. No nothing.
That Hannity show was a knockoff. There on radio, there was a show. It was Pat Buchanan and Braden. The other guy's name was Braden. Braden and Buchanan. I have kind of a shirt tail friendship with Pat Buchanan. I love Pat Buchanan, but it was the other guy's name. I can't think of his first name. Was Braden, Tom Braden. There it is. Thank you very much. And they did that 2-guy show. They were both IQs of probably 190. So it wasn't any of this, knockdown, drag out stuff. But Crossfire was a show. There you go. And but then people wanted more. I tell you what. When you look at the influence that professional wrestling has, no, you're nodding your head. I'm telling you. And people want the knockdown, drag out, go and get them kind of press that, and in many ways, Limbaugh offered.
CNN's ratings were never higher than when they were bashing Trump over the Russia collusion and the impeachments. But you look at them now, and they can barely get 250,000 viewers. Because nobody cares. Nobody cares anymore.
Yep.
They fired all their shots. The left has the news media. They fired all their shots, and it's like a gun that's out of bullets, and it just keeps going click, click, click. And I'm wondering when they're going to stop clicking.
And they're not fools. Remember that. And one of the things of principal media is they're copycats. And the best example I can give you is, all shows about black people were living in the ghetto. And then along comes the show that there's a physician, his wife's a lawyer, their kids are really brilliant, their kids are funny, they live in an affluent world. And then next year there's 4 shows like that. So they're not these guys that run this business or these businesses, they're every once in a while somebody shows up that's really, really smart and takes it on. Believe it or not, Rupert Murdoch's brilliant. And and Rupert Murdoch is his more than fair share of problems. Roger Ailes was absolutely brilliant. He really was. But
you got to be a showman in this business, but we're losing that. There's no such thing as a journalist anymore. It's a commentator.
Well,
it's a narrator.
Yep.
It's not a journalist. And even on the internet, I don't know where to go. Axios I used to like, not anymore. Politico I used to like, not anymore. Red Pilled America, maybe. I mean, there's just I don't know what I'm getting when I'm reading.
Let me give you one last, and then we got to pause. There's something called you got to feed the monster. And this was in the aftermath of the first Gulf War. And CNN now needs material 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It wasn't one time you needed enough stories, enough good stories to do a 1 hour newscast or a half an hour cast. And the local guy did a half an hour cast. And then the network guy did a half an hour cast. It's not anymore.
And now the local shows are 6 hours long.
That's right.
4 o'clock in the morning till 10.
Yep.
Of nothing.
Nothing. Of nothing. And if they were to take a chance and do something that would be deemed politically incorrect, Now those people are out there waiting with pitchforks, and they will do away with you as quickly as they can. And so it's this moment where you first have to feed the monkey. You got to feed the monster. You have to have material that you're putting in the front door. And there just isn't enough great stuff. And there's a lot of average stuff. So you get a lot of young people you don't pay much money to, and they really rip and read. And that's one of the problems that they're having right now. And plus the band expands. And that was one thing before the internet showed up. Now you got the internet. The internet does 24/7. You got to be able to feed that monster too. And so these guys they're jammed up. When I tell you that, they're talking to each other. They don't know.
Well, Pete, my dad used to tell me, put down the devices, and you want to know what's real. Look around and listen to what's around you. Surround yourself by good people, and that's what's real, not the TV or the phone. And I try to put that in my kids, but Pete, you're one of the guys I trust.
Wow.
I don't agree with you all the time,
Hey.
but I trust you. I trust you to not lie. How about that?
That's kind.
Have a good one, Pete. Have a great 25.
We'll break, everyone. 710 KNUS. We are Denver's talk station, 303-696-1971. Mark Crowley, along with Peter Boyles. Adams got the con. This is 710 KNUS.
At this hour, I'm Christina Owayo in Dallas, and here are your top stories.
The Biden administration was slammed for trying to auction off border wall material needed for new construction. Here's what you need to know about the auction and the wall, straight from the southern border.
The border wall panels that President Joe Biden tried to sell for pennies on the dollar before Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton filed a lawsuit stopping him dead in his tracks are huge, heavy, and needed by President Donald Trump to complete the southern border wall when he gets back into the White House. This is the wall that either replaced existing border barrier that looked more like chain link fence or sat a couple of feet off the ground to stop vehicles from passing through. However, a person could easily step over them. The wall that Trump will continue to build is 30 feet tall in most places. Its steel bollards are 6 inches wide and filled with concrete and rebar. The bollards are 4 inches apart, which allows Border Patrol agents to see right into Mexico. A steel anti-climbing plate tops the wall, and the wall's foundation extends 6 to 10 feet into the ground. Fiber optic cable in the ground can then detect any type of digging, and LED lights next to the wall lets Border Patrol agents and cameras see illegal activity at night.
Americans still dreaming of a really big Christmas present can keep that dream alive during Friday's Mega Millions drawing for a jackpot worth an estimated $1.15 billion. Friday's jackpot will potentially be the 5th largest in the game's history.
In Dallas, Christina Owayo, Salem News Channel.
There are two lines open, 303-696-1971. If you were trying to call the show, pick up the phone, jump in, 303-696-1971. 50 will be the high, 29 tonight, 54 on Saturday. Mark Crowley and Peter Boyles. Adam's got the con. Let's go to Gary on line 3. You're on a radio show, man. Happy weekend, man. Good morning, Gary. Thanks for coming on.
Oh, good to hear you, Pete.
Thanks.
You know as well as I do, it's all about the money. News has now become a product. And I'm old enough to remember Ward Lucas.
Oh, yeah.
Bob Palmer. They simply reported the news. It was almost like a public service. And now it's just about what will bring in the money.
Well, it's always, in terms of one of the better movies to watch, is to watch Network. And when that William Holden character who is really playing, is he playing Severide? Who is he playing? If he's playing some, old gray hair, distinguished, one of the greats. And he knows it's about money. And he, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that was a great movie. I'm at it all night. I can't take it anymore.
Absolutely right.
I'm one of the few that still reads the newspaper. I read every day the Denver Post, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal. And I'm selective about what I read and what I believe. And I think that's probably going to die with the baby boomer generation. And, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, we're tribal. What's happened is your tribe, my tribe. And when the media goes tribal, and there are people, there's a theory now that we are not the United States of America. We're actually 8 or 9 separate countries, 9 countries maybe, and we're the 9 nations of North America, and we make up the United States of America, but that's kind of like a ruse. We really are actual countries, standalone countries.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and I do watch CNN, Fox, and mostly for amusement than the news. I find it interesting to see how they try to manipulate and convince people to see things their way. The one TV show, news show, I watch every night, I think it's the best right now, is the PBS News. They report the news and they talk about things like what's going on in Syria now, which is incredibly tragic.
You wait for that, by the way. My prediction is you give that 6 months and see who shows up.
Oh yeah, and they're all over it. They're watching it, and that's news.
Yep.
And so that's the one source that I go to on TV that I actually believe. Although they do tend to have a slightly left slant as far as prioritizing what they put on the news.
Well, again, it's through I'm reading a book right now entitled America First about Charles Lindbergh and FDR and the struggle to control U.S. foreign policy in 1939 and 38. And the people who wanted nothing to do with it and the people who wanted to be in it, Foursquare wanted to be in it. And the media, it was the early part of it where Lindbergh would go on the radio and give talks, give speeches. And there were people that would try and ask Lindbergh to add this to his speech or add that to his speech. And FDR stayed away from it. He was a lot smarter than Lindbergh. But Lindbergh had a giant amount of the population saying, yeah, we went and got into that war the last time, and we got a whole bunch of kids killed, and the flu killed a bunch of kids, and it's meaningless because they're back at each other's throats again. Stay away from it. And FDR was a Francophile, or excuse me, he was a Anglophile, and he wanted to get back in the war. And there was this large contingent of Americans that said, not this time. And of course, until Pearl Harbor happened, but remember, he's doing Lend-Lease, they're giving destroyers. I mean, it's a really interesting time for this country, and what played out in it, the media, the newspapers, and the radio shows. And I wonder if that would happen today. I don't know, but the book is brilliant.
Thanks, Pete. Have a good morning.
All right, man. Let's go to Francis in Golden. We okay? We're in good time. All right. Hey, Francis, you're with Mark Crowley and Peter Boyles and Adam, and good morning. It's a 27 December show.
Hey, gang. Hope everybody had a good Christmas. I'm sure it went off well.
Yeah.
So, you know what I think part of this is? You're calling it kind of media avoidance. And I think there's a part of it that's also just fact avoidance. And I think it's tough for people to, because news avoidance or whatever. I mean, you're talking about people who just simply don't want to hear what's going on. And I think that it's been a tough couple of years, not couple. I mean, it's been kind of a tough decade if you're looking at it that way.
Maybe more so.
And so I think people instead they find it easier or find comfort in turning on, some sort of YouTube or alternate media to find some kind of self-acclaimed expert and more often than not crackpot for an explanation. And so then these explanations they try to mold into facts, and they don't want to hear media that might tell them actually what's going on sometimes. I mean, that's a problem.
Have you ever seen the ratings, the Southern California stuff that has Gilligan's Island and the Andy Griffith show? No, I'm serious, and they do well.
I mean, now
as we speak.
Oh wow!
And I can see that.
Sure,
how much more avoidant and can you be?
No, yeah. I mean that people and you own the product. It isn't a question of most of those people didn't have contracts where they got checks for many years later, and they are and one of the things that they've kept under wraps, all the Mary Tyler Moore stuff has never gotten out to be replayed.
Yeah, because that was a lot more controversial in the moment, certainly.
Yeah, but
I mean, I don't know. I still see All in the Family on periodically, and that's always interesting. I always get a kick out of that.
But look how old those shows are. Look at the shows.
Oh, ancient.
Yeah. So
ancient. All those people are pushing up daisies. I mean, they're all gone.
Yeah. So look for this. So who are the news avoiders? And you are one of them.
I do the same. I kind of tend to do the same thing. I got to look in the mirror. A lot of times I don't. Well, number one, the media also, though, has changed quite a bit. They became part of the story instead of reporting the story. And that's a big problem. That's why, I mean, I can watch Kyle Clark and you do get facts out of Kyle Clark. You get actual news here and there, but it's always tainted with some sort of a slant. And, and you get the same damn thing on Fox, just going the other direction. And that gets old.
And if you look at any of the Mother Jones-esque pages on the internet, they bang on Fox. They live off of Fox. They do, what's his face? Hannity just got engaged, and that's a big story this morning on what's her name? Ainsley, or she's a beautiful blonde woman.
Ainsley. On Fox News.
Yes, they got engaged last night. Sean Hannity.
Oh my goodness. Earhart, Ainsley Earhart.
To something.
Oh no, but she's
committed to more than meets the eye.
Oh, listen, he's sitting on that wallet. The guy's looking really good. But
wow,
yeah, they got engaged last I guess Christmas Day or whatever it was. But no, that's a big deal on Mother Jones. I read Mother Jones, but I also read Al Jazeera, the English Al Jazeera. You can do it. I mean, you just get on the page and read it, and French CNN, which tells you I got to get a life. But it's cool. It's kind of cool because it's somebody. Their views of what's taking place in Syria are totally different.
Well, we were in Vienna when that happened, and it was wall to wall on CNN Europe.
Oh yeah,
it was Syria, wall to wall, and it was interesting watching it all happen in Europe because, I mean, they took to the streets
because there's a lot of Syrians and a lot of Middle Eastern people.
The downtown area of Vienna was just overrun with demonstrators. Watch 6 months from now. Watch.
See how this looks then.
Oh, I can tell you how it's going to look. We got to take a turnaround. 710 KNUS, Denver's talk station. Mark Crowley, Peter Boyles on the air everywhere. Back here tomorrow morning at 9. We're going to look at Panama tomorrow on the radio show tomorrow at 9 o'clock here on 710 KNUS.
RockyMountainBargains.com, where you'll always pay half price. Why pay retail when you can get what you want at 50% off? Just go to RockyMountainBargains.com and save. Here's this week's featured item.
$50 gift cards from Rodizio Grill in Inglewood and downtown. Get them now for half price.
Get it now at RockyMountainBargains.com for 50% off. RockyMountainBargains.com, where you always pay half price. Restrictions apply. Go to RockyMountainBargains.com for complete details.
Believe It. Morning, everybody, on a Friday. One more hour straight ahead, December 27th, 2024. Mark Crowley, Peter Boyles, everybody ganging together here on 710 KNUS. Let's go to Dave in Fort Collins. Hey, Dave, thanks for calling the radio show, and good morning.
Good morning, Pete. How are you today?
And I'm good, man. Thank you.
Good. Hey, last hour you were talking about the news ratings and people turning away from mainstream media, and I think they got what they deserve. We've been drinking out of a fire hose of BS for the last 8 years, and I think people just kind of got to the point where they gave up on believing anything, and they've turned to social media, which is not the answer. But I'm shocked that they got away with all that they did, supporting a lot of lies coming from Capitol Hill.
What's interesting to me is if you go back and I mentioned this book that I'm reading again. Again, I'm reading a book that's entitled America First, and it's about FDR and the clash between he and Senator Bora and numbers of people, and of course the infamous Charles Lindbergh. And it's all on the radio. It's Colonel McCormick's newspapers. It's everywhere, and somebody's not telling the truth. And the American, and I think to myself, here's this moment then, and FDR's taken the reins in the height of the Great American Depression, the rise of the Nazis in Europe, everything that's taking place. The Italians are in Ethiopia, the Spanish Civil War, pardon me, the rise of the sea power of the Japanese. It's all happening, and where is it headed, and what is going to happen? And here's this guy in a wheelchair sitting there, and he's taking on the world's hero, Charles Lindbergh. And we don't understand. I mean, we don't understand it. I don't understand it. I wasn't there when it happened, but there's all kinds of stuff taking place. Father Coughlin's on the radio, and it's just another world. And yet,
And what is that? What? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go. You say.
I was just gonna say, what's there? There's a line. I don't know the tail end of it, but he who controls the media.
Well, yeah. I mean, or create your own. In the case of the Bolsheviks, they create their own. In the case of the Nazis, they seize it because it's state operated. They have their own newspaper, Griff, and then they start putting the other. Actually, the first people to be put in concentration camps inside of Nazi Germany. It's not Jews. It's not gypsies. It's heads of unions, newspaper editors. They go after them. They go after them first. And I mean, there's so much stuff that's said that isn't true.
Yeah, and I did a post on Facebook 4 or 5 years ago, and I did it again, maybe 2 or 3. Basically said, popularity of Facebook is proof that people are starved for news and information.
Sure.
Sadly, it's a source for neither.
But that's why the newspaper wars of the 30s, 40s, and 50s were real. When
exactly
they would battle out over headlines. I forget how many daily newspapers were in New York City in the 30s. There was, I don't know, 12, 13, 14, 15 newspapers. When I grew up, there was the Sun Telegraph, the Press, the Post Gazette. There were 3, and then there were, and I read the Daily Worker in the mill, but there was also the ethnic papers. There were Polish papers and Greek papers and Italian papers, Sicilian papers. There was African American newspapers.
I think there are still people who are starved for news, and I think we've lost some of these later generations to, celebrity pop stuff, but I truly think people want they want to know, but they've been fed such crap for the last 8 years from mainstream media that, I mean, my God, I don't watch any news on TV. I listen to talk radio, 3 stations all day long. And I just have to take what I'm given from the hosts and or the news breaks and try to process it and put it someplace in my head.
Well, the next fun topic, I think, will be this, Donald Trump threatening to take the United States and retake, I guess, control of the Panama Canal. I mean, that's going to be fun to do tomorrow. For me, it's going to be fun, but it won't be fun for a lot of people. But it's still, we can't go take the Panama Canal. I mean, but you listen to certain radio talk show hosts, and they will tell you what a good move that's going to be when we take back the canal.
I think a lot of Donald Trump is WWE personified. I mean, I think that's a lot of shtick.
Oh,
where it's designed to get people's
he does it
dandruff up.
Oh yeah, I think he plays it better than anybody.
Yeah, no doubt.
He hung out with Vince McMahon. He knows about pro wrestling. Yeah, good call, everybody. Hang on. Next hour, straight ahead, 710 KNUS Denver Stock Station on a Friday.
RockyMountainBargains.com, where you'll always pay half price. Why pay retail when you can get what you want at 50% off? Just go to RockyMountainBargains.com and save. Here's this week's featured item.
$50 gift cards from Rodizio Grill in Inglewood and downtown. Get them now for half price.
Get it now at RockyMountainBargains.com for 50% off. RockyMountainBargains.com, where you always pay half price. Restrictions apply. Go to RockyMountainBargains.com for complete details.
guys, on a Friday. Back here tomorrow morning at 9. Wells at 4. Bill and Jeff will be back on Monday. This is December 27th of Friday, 2024. The weather, it's going to be cloudy and 50, 54 Saturday, 60 on Sunday. Our phone number, 303-696-1971. For the first time, again, lines have all, gone empty. It's one of those drive shows. People get on the lines, don't get on the show and drop off, or they've been waiting to get on, get busy, and they hang up. Call now, 303-696-1971, and you're right on. We're talking about the media and how it's changed you and how you have changed it, and what are you watching? And now this new terms come up called news avoiders. And the idea is it's a set of things, a set of people who emphasize that it's not about the news at all, but it's about this structural barrier, perhaps is a good way to say it, that it exists now in our lives. And they just feel like they don't have time to focus on the news because they're taking care of their kids, aging parents, get on a list of things, or they just don't want to hear it. And how do you personally feel the need to limit your media consumption about politics, things you'd like to talk about and say? So we will do that this coming hour. Back here tomorrow morning at 9, we're going to look at Panama. In the meantime and in between time, without him, the show ain't worth it. Ladies and gentlemen, there he is in the newsroom, Blake Olson, my boy.
Man, Pete, this has been a great show because
Really?
you started to jog my memory, and I was thinking about this as you and Mark were talking, and I said, you know what? For me, it goes back to 1994. I think it was 94 or 95. I'm working in Dallas at the CBS affiliate, and our news director comes in to the sports department and says, okay, everybody has to come into the newsroom. We have a meeting. Someone special is going to talk to us and share his experience for about a half hour. And I want everyone to listen to it because he's a legend. And I'm like, man, we have things to do. We don't have 30 minutes to do this. So we go, but whatever. I mean, I had a negative attitude, I admit. I go in there and it's Dan freaking Rather.
Wow.
And he lectures to us for about 45 minutes on journalism. And all that I could think of was, at the time, all I could think of was I didn't believe a word that came out of his mouth with JFK when he said his head was moving forward. You could see his head moving forward, and JFK's head is moving backward. Sure. And I'll never forget that. And I'm thinking to myself, this is journalism. This is the news that we get. I don't believe anyone in this newsroom. And I was, I was in sports at the time. That's all I did. That's all I focused on. So that's when it kind of turned for me.
One of the moments in radio history or media history is when Orson Welles did the War of the Worlds, pardon me, plural. Do you think that someone could stunt that today? Because I don't.
I think I've thought about that. I think Jeff and Billy have talked about that. Maybe it was Stefan who talked about that, but I think they could. I do.
We stunted the Spanish language takeover of 710 KNUS.
Right.
And we pulled it off. And we had
you did.
The Aurora cops came, but they did. Somebody sent the Aurora cops. And I mean, everybody played their part, and it was great. But
that was awesome.
But
I think they could, honestly. Yeah, okay. I mean, look, everyone quit what they just quit their lives because the government told us to in 2020. Yep. I mean, anything is possible.
Well, but I think much of that's gone. It's one of the things now.
I hope so.
Well, Donald Trump's election win proves it.
Yeah.
We are.
I agree with that.
It's time, and I say this about what I hope Donald Trump's role is to be a disruptor. Mm-hmm. I have watched this country for the past 75 years. since the end of the Second World War. I've watched these people have nonstop wars, have taken the means of production of this country out of this country, destroy, the Union base, do the kinds of things that just are despicable. And I wrote a column about why Donald Trump won, and people renaming mountains without anybody asking, what name would you like, or renaming military installations or rivers, or saying that, if I had a son and he let his hair grow long and say he was a girl, he could go out and beat your daughter up on a soccer field. And so this is how this happens.
Yes.
And so now what is it going to do?
Yeah. Well, when you and I did the show after that first assassination attempt, you asked me, what does this mean to you? And I remember clearly I said an awakening. And I truly believe that right now. I think we are in an awakening right now. So
yes, I mean, there's no question. Yeah, it's a moment.
It is. And it's refreshing. So,
and let's see. That's right.
Yeah.
Let us know. But I do believe. Have you seen this thing on Netflix called Mr. McMahon? Have you seen that?
I have not. Sounds interesting.
It's really good, but it also talks about Vince McMahon's relationship with Donald Trump.
Oh, you told me about that one.
And they show cuts where, Trump's slapping him. Another one where Trump is, cutting his hair off. So
Right.
Trump gets the WWE is just promoting.
Sure.
And
sure. He understands the work and the shoot. Like you always preach. And you could see it. You could see it in real time.
There were wrestlers that I don't want to say I worked with, but I was the ring guy and did the promos and stuff. They believed that everything was a work. I mean, no, seriously, everything was a work. And if you ever really been around some deeply religious people, they will tell you nothing happens by accident.
Yeah,
I agree with that. God's hands on everything.
I agree with that. So do you think Linda will be good for, I don't even know what it is, education?
They haven't lived. Yeah, she has education. Linda McMahon, and she's in there, she's here for the beer. They haven't lived together for, I don't know, for quite a while.
Is that right?
Yeah, and he's
that's an interesting world, man.
Well, he is now. I mean, I don't know what happens to him, but that's another classic example of drinking your own Kool-Aid and believing that you have that power.
Oh man, well. I mean, the fact that you said that, most people, maybe it'll happen again in the future, 20, 30, 40 years, God willing, hopefully it doesn't. But our eyes are opened, and people like you have helped people see different things, even though I disagree with some things you say. I agree with most things you say, but the bottom line is you say them, and that's important.
The what's about to begin, and I think it's already begun. It's a great time for this business if it's done right. If you don't become a cheerleader, or you don't become a total negative person, you have a chance now. And the business has a chance to win itself back. I'm talking about the nightly news and CNN and the rest of them. They have a chance to knock off what they've done and to bring back a product that simply is the truth.
Interesting. So you think they can come back?
Oh, sure.
Wow.
I think anybody can come back. I think that there was a line once that said, in life, there are no second acts. And in recovery, we proved that to be wrong. But I do. I think but it's going to take a total change at the top.
Yeah.
And,
well, they're going to have to do what independents have done. the internet and on platforms, social media platforms. They're going to have to do that. You would constantly talk about this. I don't know, 5, 6, 8 years ago, you said that if you took over one of the TV stations in town and did it the way that viewers and listeners wanted, it would be number one, and it would make a ton of money. But you know what the problem is? You have to tell the truth. You can't make friends with everybody, right?
And that's part of it. And it's, once again, it's as soon as you step in the politically incorrect world that requires that in terms of telling the truth, you're a dead man.
It's probably true.
No, it's look at people's lives. But I just think this is a great time. And
I agree.
The rejection of the mainstream media, the press, the corporate, what they call legacy media.
Legacy media.
I think that speaks volumes. It's a good thing. It's not a bad thing.
Yeah, and you don't realize it. I didn't until after the election. I realized it, but I didn't. But I mean, honestly, for me, it's been 16, 17 years of this garbage, man. And it's just total
you don't want to go near them. You don't turn them on. When you don't use a product, then they've lost.
Yep.
If Channel 4 and Channel 7, with all respect, if they're not pulling the numbers, nobody's watching, because they weigh and measure that very accurately with Nielsen. That's not something that somebody guesses at.
Yep.
And so they know the truth.
Yep, I agree. All right, here we go.
It was great.
Right.
Thanks, brother.
Had a blast. Thanks,
Thank you,
Peter.
man.
Yep, 31 and clear in Denver, expecting a high of 47 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story, once again, if you are heading to the airport this morning, check before you go. DIA with multiple delays and cancellations, even at this hour. According to FlightAware earlier, over 500 flights were delayed at DIA on Thursday. Over 30 were canceled. Southwest and United with more than 150 delays each. Children's Hospital Colorado has reached a new agreement that will allow it to remain in network for military service members and their families. The hospital announced this week that it has signed a deal with TriWest Healthcare Alliance. TriWest is taking over the administration of TRICARE insurance plans, which provides healthcare coverage for active duty military veterans and their families. New York State is making companies pay up for their hand in pollution. Governor Kathy Hochul signed the Climate Change Superfund Act into law on Thursday. It will require companies that are big fossil fuel polluters to repair the damage caused by extreme weather. Will they charge her for all the pollution that comes out of her pie hole? Yeah, I don't expect that. She's a Democrat. And actor, comedian Rob Schneider broke down the left earlier this week, if you didn't hear it.
Democrats, you lost because you tried to convince the American people that it was racisty to close the border and not let people come in illegally to rob and murder them. You lost because nobody gives a fuck about the term Latinx. You lost because your Justice Department called parents who showed up at school board meetings terrorists just for not wanting pornography in their children's classrooms. You lost, Democrats, you lost because you lied about January 6th, calling it worse than Pearl Harbor or 9/11, instead of what January 6th really was, the FBI guided tour of the Capitol building. You lost, Democrats, because men can't have babies, women don't have dicks, even if they play in the WNBA. And free speech isn't a privilege like a driver's license. It's a God-given right guaranteed by our Constitution.
Yeah.
And speaking of sports, not the WNBA, Broncos at the Bengals tomorrow. They need a victory to earn their first playoff spot since 2015. Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders have paid for the biggest insurance policy in college football history, so they can play tomorrow. CU takes on BYU in the Alamo Bowl in San Antonio. Both expected to be top 10 picks in the upcoming NFL draft in April. CSU takes on Miami of Ohio in the Arizona Bowl tomorrow as well. 27 in Lafayette, 29 in Lakewood, 31 in Denver. Pete continues, and Mark and Adam are hanging around as well. In for Jeff and Billy. It's Friday. Have a great weekend. Blake Olson, News Talk 710, KNUS.
Your KNUS forecast for the Denver metro area this Friday calls for cool and pleasant late December weather conditions. Temperatures continue to be above average. We'll be looking at highs today, upper 40s and low 50s, mid and high level cloudiness, near 30 tonight. Low to mid 50s Saturday, 50s to low 60s on Sunday. Continue dry this weekend, nighttime lows in lower 30s, trending a little colder and unsettled towards Monday and Tuesday. I'm meteorologist Mark Crowley in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
At this hour, I'm Christina Owayo in Dallas, and here are your top stories.
Japanese automotive giant Toyota says it's donating $1 million to Donald Trump's inauguration ceremony. It comes as the incoming president plans to place a 25% tariff on imports from Mexico, where Toyota produces pickup trucks for the U.S. market. Chris Gilbert has more from Tokyo.
This will be the first time that Toyota has ever donated to the inauguration ceremony of a U.S. president, and it says it's doing it because it's, quote, a venerable tradition that it wants to support as it deepens its presence in the U.S. The background, of course, is that Donald Trump is planning 25% tariffs on all Mexican imports, and Toyota currently produces its Tacoma pickup truck in Mexico for the U.S. market, and is concerned the tariffs may hurt its business. Chris Gilbert in Tokyo, Salem News Channel.
The number of Americans applying for unemployment benefits held steady last week. However, continuing claims rose to the highest level in 3 years. The U.S. Labor Department reported that jobless claim applications ticked down by 1,000 to 219,000 for the week of December 21st. That's fewer than the 223,000 analysts forecasted. Continuing claims, which are the total number of Americans collecting jobless benefits, climbed by 46,000 to 1.91 million for the week of December 14th. That's more than analysts projected and the most since the week of November 13th of 2021.
That's what you need to know at this hour. In Dallas, Christina Owayo, Salem News Channel.
Morning, everybody. It is Friday morning, December 27th, 2024. I'm Peter Boyles in for the fellows. They're back here on Monday morning. I will be back here tomorrow at 9. One of the topics we're going to spend some time with is the Panama Canal. The media is the topic this morning. Changing the media, has it changed? And this new term that popped up that we've been talking about it, news avoiders. Are you one? We'll begin. Let's go to the phones. Line one is Mike. There's a line open. Mike, you're on the radio show. Good morning and thank you.
Hey, Peter. Thank you very much for taking my call. I'm an old friend of Mark Crowley's. I'm a cop that served with Mark. I wanted to wish Mark a very Merry Christmas.
He heard you.
And I wanted to talk about the media and the police department and how, it was back during Mark and my career, we were so much closer to the media over the years. And, we worked many crime scenes with the media. As a matter of fact, your friend, Julie Hayden, Chuck's wife, and I worked many crime scenes with Julie.
Well, remember what's happened to cops. Remember the cops are now on the political hit list.
I know.
So the media goes right. The media goes right with them. Yeah, sure.
Right. I mean, the cops are the hated ones, and I was thinking when I really enjoyed and called in during Ron Petrocesso and Bob's thing, and I was wondering, and Mark would know who they were. I would love to hear you do a show with the detectives that investigated Alan's case, because it would be interesting to me, I think, and the listeners to hear just locally. I know
they didn't have it. They didn't have it locally, and that's not a rap on the cops, but it came from outside. And the only Denverite was a guy named David Lane. And he had moved.
But I'm talking about the investigation, the criminal investigation here locally, how they tracked him down.
Well, the FBI did it.
Well, we did an investigation locally.
Oh, absolutely. And remember the moment that you may or not remember, but was either a reporter, I think it was a reporter that was talking to some of the murder squad guys, and they said, "Who do you suspect?" And the cop reached under the desk, pulled up a Denver phone book, tossed it on the desk and said, "Pick a name."
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, they. I remember, a few of the guys, because I was an avid listener. I was younger then, of Alan. And, I remember listening to David Lane, who was a firefighter. And Alan go back.
He wasn't. David Lane was not a firefighter. That was a guy named Fred Wilkins.
Oh, the attorney, but.
David Lane, the attorney. Okay. All right.
Right. But which one of the guys in the order, the callers was a firefighter that called into Alan?
That was a guy named Fred Wilkins. He was
Fred Wilkins.
And he wasn't in the order. He was a paramedic, and he's the one that came into the radio station in another incident that took place, and he was accused of coming in after Alan Berg, and and then after, and I wish I'd have kept it, but the morning after Alan's murder, I got a note put on my desk by the receptionist at 710 and KBPI, and it said, it was from Fred Wilkins, who said, the thing was interesting. It just said, "I didn't do it," which I threw it out or whatever I did with it, and I wish I'd have kept it. It would have been an interesting part of that whole experience, but that wasn't how they were caught. They were caught. We mentioned it earlier. If you see the movie of and he's a very, very small part of the movie, and there's no explanation for his murder, and that's nothing to do with Kevin Flynn or Gary. that has to do with the producers and the directors of the film, the writers of the film. But there was a moment where he trades guns, doesn't know that he's done it, and he picks up one of the armored car guys. I think he had a 357 Smith, and he changed guns for it. And then the other one was the counterfeiter in Philadelphia. They're both feds. They're both federal. And the people that killed him, they immediately left town. So he wasn't going to be, there wasn't anybody here to catch.
Right.
So.
Right. But I remember, like I said, that the media back in the day, both print and local, we had a relationship. We had a few print people that took after the police in Carnahan, and a few people took on the police. But for the most part, we, both the city council and the media.
It was a different time.
Charlie Brown and we had terrible Ted Hackworth, and even he was different than, the only one we have now is Kevin Flynn.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the rest of them are just socialists and this mayor. But
things have changed.
I thought Pena was something, but this guy.
No. This guy makes Pena and makes the rest of them look like Winston Churchill.
And to what end?
And to what end?
It's amazing. And that's the thing. With all the billions of dollars they spend of U.S. taxpayers' money.
Well, if they can get rid of them, but once again, the Republicans and or conservative movement has to find the right candidate. You have to find the right man or woman, because this guy is a bigger disaster than the last guy, who was a bigger disaster than the guy before him. But the problem is the citizens of Denver are now, they mirror a lot of then
what he is.
You will get what you pay for. I appreciate the
call.
The
wolf.
Go ahead.
No problem.
Say it again.
Well, I just, when you think about the whole wolf problem, 2 counties in the state vote for the wolf problem.
Yeah.
And, when you think about Colorado, in the upcoming National Western Stock Show, a huge benefit to the state. Colorado is a Western state. It almost mirrors the television show Yellowstone, but it's controlled politically by 2 counties, Denver and Boulder.
Yeah.
And politically, it's about as far from that as you can, and until we can get a Western style governor.
Well, the wolf fiasco was is so bad that you're absolutely right. These people that made that decision or made those decisions to reintroduce those wolves, they didn't do the wolves any favors. They didn't do the cattle any favors. They didn't do the ranchers any favors. They did the green far left. They apparently played off on them. I got to jump, Mike. Thank you very much.
Don't worry.
All right.
Thank you.
303-696-1971. There's 2 lines open. Again, we're talking principally about the media, and I'm reading this report yesterday and seeing a new term, and these are they're news avoiders. And I thought, wow, what a different set of rules now. And the reasons they gave for avoiding the news. Have you become that? What is your media life like? 303-696-1971.
Price. Why pay retail when you can get what you want at 50% off? Just go to RockyMountainBargains.com and save. Here's this week's featured item.
$50 gift cards from Rodizio Grill in Inglewood and downtown. Get them now for half price.
Get it now at RockyMountainBargains.com for 50% off. RockyMountainBargains.com, where you always pay half price. Restrictions apply. Go to RockyMountainBargains.com for complete details.
At this hour, I'm Christina Owayo in Dallas, and here are your top stories. There is no price tag when it comes to national security. That's the latest statement made by the man Trump pegged to clean up the immigration crisis in the United States. Incoming border czar Tom Homan, who is about to launch President Donald Trump's mass deportation plan, sending millions of illegal migrants back across the southern border, says it's going to cost about $86 billion to start. However, keeping illegal migrants in the country cost more than double that last year alone. Homan saying the savings for American taxpayers will get even greater over time.
Homan also saying that there is no price tag when it comes to American lives, adding that he aims to stop illegal migrants from murdering the children of American citizens. And even though the operation will be expensive, it's less than the more than $160 billion taxpayers spent last year alone to pay for airline tickets, health care, hotel rooms, food, and education for illegal migrants. Homan saying in the long run, the mass deportation plan will save citizens tens of billions of dollars, reminding people that none of this would be happening if the Biden-Harris administration didn't reverse Trump-era immigration policies and open the border by giving away unlimited benefits to illegals. 3 people were shot and 1 other stabbed after a family dispute broke out at an airport in Arizona. The incident happened in Phoenix over the Christmas holiday following a physical altercation.
In Dallas, Christina Awayo, Salem News Channel.
And I'm tucked right in there right after John tomorrow morning on a Saturday. It's Friday, December 27th, 2024. Good old 710 KNUS. I'm Peter Boyles. We have one line open. Phone number is 303-696-1971. And we are talking about the media, a number of things in general. We will go, is Nick next on line two? Go to Nick, I believe, or is it Bill? Which guy's first? Nick's first. Okay. Nick, you're on the radio show. Good morning. Thank you very much for calling.
Good morning, and thanks for taking my call. A prime example of how bad the media is in this city is when the mayor was confronted with the fact that the city of Denver has spent $150 million in the last 2 years on this homeless problem. They don't know where the money went. He admitted to that. They have no plan going forward except more of the same, and nobody pressed them on the subject at all.
Absolutely right.
They completely left them off the hook. It was just incredible, unbelievable. 150. You know how many houses you could build or revamp for $150 million and ease the housing situation in this town? It's quite a bit, and it's just disgusting that he never even apologized or even gave a plan forward, except more of the same.
How closely do you watch him?
Not very closely, and I should, because the guy's dangerous because he's so stupid.
I tell you who he is, and I've seen it many times before. He is channeling, that's the term they use now, the original RFK. He's got his white shirt sleeves always rolled up to the elbow.
Right,
He's got the hair. He's always doing the thing with his right hand pulling his hair back. He's got his tie on, but he's got a very like Harvard pull down tie knot that's about halfway down his chest. I'm serious.
You're right.
No, listen, believe me. And I watched Gary Hart channel his brother Jack. That Gary Hart was channeling Jack Kennedy. The look, the clothes, the haircut. They think, and maybe it works, but they think it works. And who this guy is, I'm talking about the current mayor. He is the original RFK, and he is. Your point is he's dangerous. There's about a shift that is close to happening. Polis is forced out. Now that really is going to cause a fight amongst the Democrats that'll be interesting to watch. You have the AG wants the job. You certainly have the mayor that wants the job. You got all kinds of outside factions that want the job. We collectively, or people reasonable thought, have to find somebody, and find somebody now. And find somebody, raise money for this person, because if someone of his political thoughts gets his hands on the reins at Colfax and Broadway, you hide and watch.
When is Polis term limited out? Next year?
Yes.
Not 25.
Yeah,
25.
He's gonna double check, but I think he's done in 25
or 26.
Well, let me see. We'll wait for the truth teller. Wait for Adam. But there's a lot of speculation that he's going to try and run for the real big seat in Washington, D.C.
No, he's not going to make it. He does not have a national following or anything like that. I'm sorry. At least that's my opinion.
But you say that now early on, but remember, there were all these sleepers like Barack Obama.
True.
You have to be, and believe me, I have no idea what is going to happen, but I've seen enough of the sleeper candidate. Jimmy Carter was a sleeper. They didn't know who Jimmy Carter was. He was a minor state, Georgia. What year?
All right. Okay.
27. Okay, I'm sorry. It's 27. I apologize. But
so he's the mayor. He's the governor for 25 through 26.
No, we're talking about Jared Polis, right? Yeah. Yes.
So he's got 2 more years.
Yes.
Yeah.
But he's been really playing an interesting power moment. He's playing center. The state of Colorado came in even further less numbers for Donald Trump, but there was a lot of stuff that happened in the Republican Party that was positive.
Yes.
So,
yes, and I have a lot of faith that this new lady, I think it's Heidi Galan, I think is her name,
Yep.
is she realizes the Republican Party is a joke. It has to be rebuilt from the ground up, period.
Yes, but it's a civil war right now.
Yes, it is.
And I know people on both sides and people that are dear friends on both sides, probably more good friends on the outside looking in than on the inside looking out. But they have to find a way. They have to find a way to have peace talks and to shake hands and know that the real enemy is the next 4 or 8 or 12 years. And I don't know if either side's capable.
I don't know. I don't know. You know more than I do because you're closer to the devil than I am.
Well, which one's the devil?
Both of them.
Yeah, I'm saying which one's
I don't know, but I do know when especially in politics, you always have to sleep with one eye open. Look what the people who really perfected the propaganda game has to be the Nazis. And you know that history better than I do.
Well,
if it weren't for the media and the skillful use of the radio, Hitler might not have become Hitler.
But it's one of those places where the state owned the radio, owned the radio business. And
right.
And again, the Nazis, they weren't directly elected into power, but there was no bloody revolution to put the Fuhrer in the chancellor's job. The death comes of Hindenburg, the Reichstag burns. There's a lot of alarm, and plus things are starting to get a little bit better. And so it's a really, and then of course when the power gets solidified, and that's the real frightening part. And then it begins. And I was telling somebody, I was talking about this. Adolf Hitler wrote a second book, and a lot. I wasn't that aware of it. And he wrote a book in 1928 that really wasn't published until the first part of the 60s. And it's a fascinating read, and how he wanted to deal with the United States of America, and what he wants to do. And it's not Mein Kampf. It's a later book that, of course, after 1945, it's not real smart to be publishing Adolf Hitler, but
or naming your kid Adolf Hitler,
or name your kid Adolf, or any of that stuff. But the book. Now I'm reading the book, and it's actually inside of another book, and he was going to wait. He didn't think that the United States would fight, and yet he declares war against the United States. But he's going to defeat the Soviets and defeat the British, and he's going to wait. And he wants to build this bomber that will be able to fly to America and fly back again. And they call it the American bomber, I think they call it. And he's going to build his Navy, and he's going to begin all of this. Well, he doesn't foresee the Japanese doing what they did, but he has a plan. And it's really fascinating. It's like, woo, could you have pulled this off? And he is, as you point out, they knew exactly what they were doing, and they did it.
That's right.
And I'm being told we take a break. So Friday morning, everyone. Bill, thank you. We have a line open, 303-696-1971. Yeah, he wrote a book in 1928, and I never knew that the book was out there. And so I'm reading it, and how you want to take a call? Okay. Who do we take it from? I thought we just talked to Bill. No, this is new Bill. Bill in Highlands Ranch. Hey, man, you're on a radio show. Thank
Hey,
you.
Pete, thank you. Happy New Year. Hey,
You too.
I want to tell you, I really appreciate your historical knowledge.
Yeah.
Over the years, I have just listened to you, and you've inspired me to check that stuff out. But I think you got a degree in that out of college,
Yeah.
and you've continued to pursue it and love it, and I appreciate that. And you bring up a lot of things there. I'm thinking about how the people were kind of programmed. I think about Mao, I think about Lenin, I think about Stalin,
Sure.
and of course Hitler. Another thing that's coming to mind right now is they're trying to eliminate in this country putting AM radios in cars. I mean, that's
Yeah.
and that drives me nuts. But that wasn't why I called. The reason I really called is, when I took classes in journalism, they taught us that you answer who, what, when, where, and
how.
why.
Yeah.
And who, what, when, where, why, and
Mhm.
how, and you write that down, and that is a news article. If you start implementing, your own ideologies or your thoughts into that article, it becomes an editorial.
Mhm.
And I don't think a lot of people understand that, but I think that's what we see with, excuse the expression, Rachel Madcow and CNN and MSNBC and all that stuff. And it just drives me nuts because I think a lot of people don't understand that. They don't see that. And yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I'm just the war was initially a newspaper war because there was no electronic media, and that war was as intense as the parties they represented. My dad thought the Pittsburgh Press was a Republican newspaper, and that it was not the newspaper of the working man. And until I started to deliver it, he said he didn't want it in the house. But when I started making probably $10 a week off of it, that was, things changed. But there were newspapers that he believed were the paper of the working man or the paper of the Democratic Party, and that was the radio guys really weren't into that world yet. Radio was so new that they were trying to figure themselves out, and matter of fact, the first people that sold radios, they sold the radios so they could, there wasn't anything like, and then one day we should sell radios and then we can sell advertising. But they didn't, which is the life's blood of what we do now. But then it was like sell the radios. And that was RCA Victor and what was his name? Cernoff. And they built radios to sell radios, and they later figured out that they could make them pay off. And yeah, but the real fight was the newspapers, and they would be conservative papers that hated FDR and the Democrat working press, they called themselves, that supported FDR. But
we also go back here with the Denver Post versus the Rocky Mountain News.
Sure, you bet.
Rocky Mountain News was more of a conservative.
Yep.
As in the Denver Post, we know what that was about.
Sure.
And so they persevered. They, outlived the Rocky Mountain News. I mean, it was a sad day when the news shut down.
That was Dean Single, who's my dearest friend. That was his choice. That when they bought out one, they put the lights out in that one. And in fact, Kevin Flynn was at the Rocky when all of it happened. They tried to self-publish. They tried to have a commune kind of a situation where the reporters and pressmen and everybody would own the paper. Well, it didn't work. It failed. And the Post survived and survives to this day. But
I know, I'm thinking about news, broadcasters, Channel 9, 7, and 4, and I go back to Carl Akers, and I go back to John Rayburn, and I go back to Ed Sardella, and I know probably a couple of those guys were very, very liberal, but I don't think they really. You could tell that on the air.
But
you could tell that on the air. Yeah,
I knew those guys. I didn't know some of them. I knew real well. And were they kind of Jack Kennedy 60s liberals? Yes, but they would not fit into the Democratic Party today any more than Jack Kennedy would.
Kennedy would probably be a Republican nowadays with
there's no
his
question.
values and what he espoused.
There's no question. They would
blows me away. And
the one guy that I really got to know that was a name was Bob Palmer, because I worked at KOA and KOA television was right there. Now it's KCNC, and he would come over and sit and talk, have a cigarette, and put his feet up, and he would. I've told us before. He was an aficionado of George Custer from Custer's Last Stand. He had Custer's shotgun.
Why?
Yeah, he really did. And he knew it. I mean, he had that down. He wasn't a fan, but he just knew Custer's life, and he would wander over and sit down, put his feet up, and before we would go. I went on here at 9, and he'd come over and he'd be there and he'd say stuff, and he was a brilliant guy. He was no hack. He was a smart guy. And the late, Bob Martin would come over and talk, and those guys. It was. I don't know what those guys are like today because I don't know them, but
yeah,
they were a different breed of cat. I gotta break them.
I want to say one. I want to say one parting shot.
Real.
Do not cut Polis short after what we saw.
No,
Harris
I don't.
Do, okay,
I don't.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah. I mean, anything's possible. If Harris ran for president,
you bet.
Polis is a lot better choice than what she ever could have thought about.
His hat is in the ring.
Go. I'll let you go.
Thank you very much. All right, I'm back here tomorrow morning at 9. One of the topics will be the Panama Canal. Thanks to Mark Crowley, and special thanks to Adam and everybody. And the boys are back on Monday, and I'll see you tomorrow at 9 o'clock. Have a good day.